All right, in accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meeting Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, be advised that a notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board, town hall, and mailing to the officially designated newspapers a list of the meeting dates annually, indicating that this meeting would take place at Town Hall at 7 p.m. on March 18th, 2024.
Joseph Caulfield,
Here.
Chandra Harjani,
Here.
Carrie Rosen,
Here.
Regina Truitt.
Here.
Priscilla Surratt.
Here.
Sunshine Pang.
Yeah.
Chairman Craig Penman.
Here. Okay, we're first going to have approval of minutes of 1/22/24. Any corrections or changes?
The only change I made is on the top, it says January 8th, it should say January 22nd.
Okay. And who's on?
Let me just see. Okay, Joseph, Chandra, Gary, Regina, Priscilla, Sunshine, Craig.
Nice. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes with the noted change? So moved. A second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Next up, we have two memorializations. First one being calendar 396423, Laura Hober and Jose Valdez of 53 Sagamore Road in Milburn. Any corrections or changes? Do we have eligible on that?
Eligible, Joseph, Chandra, Regina, Priscilla, Craig.
Would someone like to make a motion in that case? Move to approve. Thank you.
Second.
Take a second, Priscilla.
Joseph Caulfield,
Yes.
Chandra Harjani,
Yes.
Regina Truitt.
Yes.
Priscilla Surratt,
Yes.
Craig Penman.
Yes. Next up, we have calendar 395923, Pranav and Teha Sukthankar, 50 Elmwood Place in Short Hills. Any corrections or changes? Same crew or?
Same people.
Can I have a motion?
I'll move to approve calendar number 3959-23.
Thank you.
I can second.
Thank you, John.
Joseph Caulfield,
Yes.
Chandra Harjani,
Yes.
Regina Truitt,
Yes.
Priscilla Surratt,
Yes.
Craig Penman.
Yes. First up this evening, we have calendar 396324, Michael Tanganella at 35 Adams Avenue. Good evening, Council.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Anthony Sorsillo. I'm with the law firm of Levitt and Sorsillo in Milburn. On behalf of Michael and Tanya Ganella, this lot is in the residential R3 zone district, and the single-family dwelling is currently under construction. The subject lot is a through lot, which means it has two front yards and no rear yard. It fronts both Adams Avenue and Taft Drive. This application involves the dwelling's proposed accessory uses, such as a pool house, a pergola, in-ground pool with associated equipment, covered terraces, patios, and a fence located in the front yard of Taft Drive. Our clients propose to plant 21 giant green arborvitae on the front yard of Taft Drive and install a dry well system as noted in Mantara's plans. The proposed accessory uses trigger variance relief from building coverage. 13% is permitted and 16.6 is proposed. And from lot coverage, 35% is permitted and 36.6% is proposed. The absence of a rear yard creates two variances since certain accessory areas, including the fence, are in the front yard of Taft Drive. I have 3 witnesses: Giovanni Manilio, civil engineer, Frank Troia, architect, and Catherine Sarmad, professional planner. Our clients happen to be on a pre-scheduled spring break vacation, but a family member who's also part of our team is here. Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to call my first witness.
There you go. Who's qualified?
Giovanni Manilio.
Do you swear affirm testimony you're about to give in tonight's hearing be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Your name and spelling your name for the record, please.
Sure. Giovanni, Giovanni, last name Manilio, Manilio, owner and president of Mantara Design with an address of 62 Grove Street in Somerville, New Jersey.
Your qualifications, please.
Sure. So I have a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from Syracuse University. I've been licensed in the state of New Jersey for the past 15 years and currently in good standing, and currently licensed in New York as well. Testified in front of numerous boards throughout the state. I haven't testified in front of this board, but I have testified in front of the board, the Township's Planning Board. And our office is familiar with the township zoning. We've done probably a dozen zoning applications within the past 2 years.
Qualifications are accepted by this board. Please proceed.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
So I'm just going to put up an exhibit. It's titled Site Exhibit. It's a color rendition of what was provided in your plan set, along with an aerial as well. And it's, again, Ganella Residence Site Exhibit with today's date, A1.
Yes, yes, let's mark it as A1. Today's date, is that what it is?
Yes.
3/18/24.
Please advise if there's been any change to that plan.
Yeah, so we did make one minor change, and I'll go through it with my testimony. It's just with regards to the location of the pool equipment and the mechanicals for the pool house. So that was inadvertently not included in the plans that were provided.
And the fence.
And there were some changes to the fence with some discussions that we've had with the neighbors in the past few days. And again, we'll discuss that as well. As council has already stated, I'll kind of restate some of the facts of the property. Property is known as 35 Adams, block 3006, lot 21, located in the R3 residential zone. The lot is irregularly shaped with frontage on both Adams and Taft Drive. Adams is obviously the main frontage where the house fronts, and that's located here on the bottom of the sheet. And Taft Drive is up here on the top of the sheet. As you can see, the property has no rear yard, so pretty much any improvement to the property besides the principal structure, any accessory structure would almost likely trigger a variance and appearance in front of this board. The property was previously granted zoning approvals for the new construction of the house. Previously on the lot was a single-family dwelling with 2 driveways, an access off of Taft and an access off of Adams. The current application or the current construction includes just driveways off of Adams. So Taft would be utilized strictly for a rear yard, even though it's considered a front yard per the zoning
Can I
regulations.
ask you a quick question? When you
Sure.
say the property previously received zoning approvals, was there any variance or exception relief required, or was it fully conforming?
So my office did not prepare the plans, but as far as I know, it was fully conforming. It was
So you
granted
didn't
building
go before any board for any relief?
No.
Thank you.
No problem. So in the middle in the light brown is the existing dwelling that's being constructed right now. And I'm going to start my way from that, going towards Taft Drive. So being proposed is a patio area on the outside. The 2 small brown areas are going to be covered. So you're going to have a covered patio on flanking a dining area in the outside of the rear dwelling. From the rear of the dwelling, you take a couple steps down and you get to the proposed in-ground pool with pool patio right here. And then further back into the site is the proposed pool house. The pool house itself, the actual footprint is about 600 square feet, but the pool house also has on either side of it these covered roof areas. Again, no living space underneath. It's just a decorative and shade providing area. And additionally, in front of the pool house is a decorative pergola. Behind the pool house, closer to Taft Drive, is an outdoor shower. And as I mentioned earlier, That is also where we're proposing to put the outdoor mechanical equipment, almost like an extension of that outdoor shower. It'll be enclosed with a fence or some type of decorative screening, so you won't see it. And additionally, we are proposing the arborvitaes, as council had mentioned earlier, roughly 21 of them in the rear, again, providing additional screening to the neighbors and screening of the mechanical equipment. Lastly, we are proposing a 6-foot fence, which is going to be a solid fence, and it could be a privacy fence that goes around the side of the property. So it starts right here at the side of the house, goes along the side property line. The one change, so originally the fence followed pretty much the property line. With discussions with some of the neighbors on Taft, the applicant has agreed to move this portion of the fence further away from Taft Drive and put the arborvitaes, 9 arborvitaes on their side of the fence, still on our property. And then the fence will come back and will go around the cul-de-sac, roughly 5 feet off the property line. And then once it gets past halfway through the cul-de-sac, it will continue following against the property line and end right here at the side of the house.
Okay, so referring to A1, and
Yes.
you're describing it, but that's not going to be picked up by the court reporter, certainly in terms of where specifically the fence is to be located. So you talked to, can you be specific?
Sure.
In talking about, is there any landscaping that you're proposing that is not going to be installed on your property, your client's property?
No, so all the landscape is going to be located on our property.
On your property?
Correct.
Okay.
So for the fence along the sides of the property, it is going to be roughly along the property line, give or take 6 inches or so. Once you get to Taft Drive, the portion of Taft Drive that is not the cul-de-sac will be roughly 10 to 15 feet off the property line.
So is the fence going along Taft Drive?
It will go along Taft Drive, but 10 feet off the property line. So on our site.
Okay.
Between the fence and Taft Drive, we will have 9 arborvitaes. Once we get to the cul-de-sac, the fence will be set back 5 feet from the property line along the cul-de-sac, up to the midpoint of the cul-de-sac. And it was a lot to take in. And then from the midpoint of the cul-de-sac, again, it will follow the remainder of the site, which is the, northwest portion of the site, all the way along the west portion of the site, along the property line. Again, these changes will be reflected on the revised plans. I do want to note, per the township ordinance, obviously fences are not allowed in the front yard, but if this was a side yard or a rear yard, there would be no setback requirement as far as where the fence would be. So the applicant is proposing a setback that is more than required for a side or a rear yard.
And the size of the fence is 6 feet?
It's roughly 6 feet. It's a unique size. I believe it's 69 inches, so it's slightly under 6 feet. But to make it simple, we're just going to call it 6 feet. And that's a picture of that fence is shown right here. So it's a modern solid fence. Again, if this was a side or a rear yard, it would be permitted. Per the township ordinance, no fences are permitted in the front yard besides an 18-inch decorative fence around landscaping. Or if you're on a county road, you're allowed a 4-foot-high decorative fence.
Is there any fencing currently along Taft Drive?
There's currently a chain link fence that comes along. I believe it ends right here at the cul-de-sac.
And where does it go?
It goes along this side of the property. Originally, this is where that driveway was that was previously there with the old residence. So this,
Is this a solid fence you're putting up?
yes.
Aluminum, right? That's what it-
Um,
Or is it like,
Yes.
it's aluminum?
What the detail says on
Yeah.
sheet 1.
And why?
It's a sleek fence and it's entitled sleek fence.
You don't have
You know what? I did have a printout on it. If this helps, I could enter this as an exhibit. It's from their website if you want to pass it around.
Pass that around.
Sure.
All right, well, let's mark that as A2. And can you please describe what that is?
Sure. This is a brochure that was taken off of sleekfence.com. And it's an example of the fence that is being proposed as part of this application. might be a little easier to see than black and white, even though the fence is still black.
Can I ask another relevant question to
Yes.
to the fence? The part that's going to be facing Adams Avenue, is that also solid and 6 feet tall? The part that's
This portion here?
parallel to Adams, yes.
Yes, the whole fence is this.
And the
this-
gates, what are the gates going to look like?
Same thing. It's a,
They're just gonna be same fencing
Yeah.
around it? Yeah.
yeah,
Thanks.
you're welcome.
And how far in from the existing fence location is it? I can't, because I couldn't really see. Initially, it was proposed to be on the right-of-way line.
Correct. Originally, it was supposed to be along the right-of-way line along Taft, along the, I guess, the stem of Taft. Now we're offsetting it 10 feet off the property line.
This is a smaller version, you want to give it to the board?
I don't know if it's helpful. Is it helpful if the board has a smaller version of the?
Yes.
That- well, for the record. Was there any other fences that were considered?
So, I mean, it is a pool, so by code and by township ordinance, a 4-foot fence is required. Again, given the location of this property, and I don't know if anybody's driven down Taft, it is decently wooded back here. And given the arborvitaes that we are planting, we think it's decorative and it would fit the character of the neighborhood. Yeah, so as far as variances, I'll just give a quick recap of the variances that are being requested. We do have a planner that will provide some justifications for the variances. So the first two obviously are due to the nature of the site being a through lot. Again, the township ordinance doesn't have any requirements or actually it doesn't even reference through lots in the ordinance as far as definitions or exemptions.
Can I just interrupt you for a second?
Sure.
Marlene, just help me out on this. So I understand you're characterizing it as a through lot because you have a right of way on both the front. Yeah.
Correct.
But what are you characterizing that final, what I'll call the 55-foot leg on the, I guess, the northwestern corner there? Yeah, is that, because it's not adjacent to a road, what is that considered?
When we did the setbacks, it actually didn't come into play because once you do the setbacks for the front yard, that setback has no play as far as, setbacks. I mean, if that was me, I would consider that a side yard. But I would leave that to Eileen to front yard.
So that's a side yard?
No, front yard. Yes, I-
That's a front yard.
Because it's forward of the house, from the street, and it's regardless.
Right.
Thanks.
All right, so the request that we're requesting is that all accessory uses shall be constructed in a rear yard for residential properties, except for corner lots. This is not a corner lot, and technically the pool, the patios, and the pool house are all constructed within the front yard. I do want to note also that, if it was located in the rear yard, there are setback requirements for accessory structures. For our R3 zone, the requirement is 12 feet from a rear yard and 12 feet from a side yard. The proposed improvements are over 30 feet from the Taft Drive property line and 12 feet from the patio to the side yard. So it would comply if this was a typical lot. Fences I've mentioned earlier. So fences are not permitted in a front yard besides a fence that is 18 inches tall and surrounding landscaping, or on a county road, a 4-foot fence, a decorative fence is permitted. Again, we are proposing a 6-foot solid fence for this property. Maximum building coverage, 13% is permitted, where 16.6% is proposed. I do want to note that of that, 2.7% of the building coverage are areas that are not really habitable spaces. They're just covered roof areas, covered patios, covered decorative roof areas. Maximum lot coverage, 35% is permitted, where 36.6% is proposed. So we are over by 765 square feet. Unfortunately, the pool is considered impervious in Milburn. There are other towns that do not consider pools as impervious. And we get it, it is a hard surface. It does get rainwater, but I do want to note it does not contribute to stormwater runoff. Anything that falls into the pool stays in the pool. But when we did our stormwater analysis, we took that into account. So not only are we sizing it for all the improvements, but we're including the pool area as runoff as well. Lastly, mechanical equipment. So that's the new add to the plan that wasn't on the original plan. We are proposing a mechanical equipment behind the pool house, adjacent to the outdoor shower. Per the ordinance, mechanical equipment shall be located in a rear yard, where the site does not have a rear yard and is being proposed in a front yard. Again, we are providing 3 levels of screening. We're going to have screening around the mechanical equipment directly next to mechanical equipment. We will have the double row of arborvitae on Taft Drive, and we will also are proposing that 6-foot solid fence. Other than that, the only other improvement that we are providing is stormwater detention. So there's a series of dry wells that's being proposed, not shown on this plan, but it's located roughly in this area. And again, that's been designed in accordance with the township regulations.
What page of your plans is the?
Page 2 of the fence. That's it.
Anyone have any questions?
So what's on the left side of the property? Just left it on the chart.
Right here.
Yeah, outside of this property.
Oh,
There's another house over there.
yeah. So if you look on the
How
aerial,
close are those? Is that a pool they have?
yep. So our property, like I guess I didn't kind of skip the aerial portion. So, and the yellow is our property. To the west, there are residential properties. There is a pool on this side. I believe there's a pool over here. Yeah, so it's surrounded by residential on all sides.
And on the edge of this property, is there vegetation, anything? There'll be a fence, presumably, right? But is there any, any trees, anything on that side?
This is the area to discussing.
Well, coming down,
Side.
yes, side of the house.
So I think this is a good depiction. This is actually from Google. It looks pretty recent, so you can see the new house being constructed in the area that's cleared in the rear. There's going to be a little bit more clearing to get some of these improvements in, but for the most part, yeah, this is what you're seeing here as far as the vegetation will be there. On the side. Oh, I'm sorry.
See that. So is it grass? Is it other
No, there
plants?
is
I can't
some
see it.
trees along that property line. Yes. I couldn't tell you if they're on the properties or our property, but
Good.
Couple clarification questions. How far is the house on lot 21 from your eastern property line? Yeah, you can point, the one, if you're looking at the aerial on A1.
Yep.
Right, to the right, there's a, right there, right? What's the setback from that home to the common property line? Do you know?
I don't know the exact number. I could scale it off the aerial. Again, I'm not sure how accurate that'd be. Right now, our building is 24.4 feet off the property line.
That's right, that's the home and the proposed covered patio.
Or
24.4, right?
from the property line. Yeah, I don't have the
You don't know
dimension
what the distance is
to the,
to that nearest property?
no. Again, I could scale it off the aerial, but I can't promise that'll
Can
be.
you approximate?
I'd say plus or minus 40 feet.
40 feet?
Yes.
Is that a single story, 2-story structure?
2-story.
That has line of sight into the pool or?
From the 2nd story, yeah, so seeing over the 6-foot fence, yes.
And my other question was, I'm looking at your sheet 1
Mhm.
on this new engineering plan. And you're showing average setbacks to Taft Drive. And it looks like you have outlined or structures on the subject property that are not consistent with what is being proposed here. Can you say clarity of that, please?
So can you clarify that?
Yeah,
Question,
sure.
I'm sorry.
So I'm looking
Yes.
there. So if you pull out your sheet one,
Doesn't have it for now.
that's why I'm just,
Oh, sorry.
it's okay.
I just scrolled from-
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. See what I'm referring to? On the subject property, you have average setback map and you're showing a setback to the right of way of 95.5. But I think that that's from a structure that's no longer there,
That is correct.
correct?
Yes.
Right? So and then the setback from the pool house to the cul-de-sac is 32 feet. And the outdoor shower to the cul-de-sac is a little over 30 feet.
Yeah, so just doing the math, so if you exclude the dwelling that's on the current lot 21 that you're talking about, the average setback for those two would still be 75.1. So it'd be a difference of 0.1 feet.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification.
You're welcome.
A couple questions, just while you're there. The average setback map brought my attention to it, Rob. And you have, for instance, lot 22, you have 102.8 to the right of way and 122.8. You're going to the center of the right of way for your setback?
Yes, it was measured both ways, to the center line and to the right of way.
So,
The calculation that we did was to the right of way.
yeah, that's right. The calculation you did was to the center line?
No, to the right of way. So if you look at the below,
102.8.
yeah, so our calculation's below. It has the 75.5, the 102.8, and
That's
47.3.
47.3, okay.
Right, so if you take out the 75.5 and add the 2, it'll be a difference of 0.1.
147 divided by 2, that's where you get your 75.
Yeah.
Right?
Correct.
If you could just, if it's okay, just take me through the fence line again that you mentioned and on Taft, that's different than what we have on our sheet one, right?
Correct, so originally the proposal was to have the fence approximately six inches off the property line. We got some feedback from one or two of the neighbors on Taft Drive about moving it closer or away from the property line.
Okay, so you're like on that section of Taft before it hits the cul-de-sac.
That
How-
is 10
How far
feet,
set off the boundary are you looking?
so that's 10 feet off the property line.
10 feet. And then the trees are gonna be on our side of the fence or on the other side of the fence?
When you say our side,
But the property owners side.
no, it'll be on the neighbor's side of the fence.
All right, so as I'm driving down Taft,
You'll
I'll see the black.
You'll see 9 arborvitaes with the black fence behind it.
Okay, so, okay.
How are you gonna maintain those trees if the fence is on the other side?
No, arborvitaes are pretty hard to begin with, but I'm sure the applicant will have no issues with putting a gate if needed for access. We do have, we're gonna have 5 feet along here and 10 feet there, so there is gonna be route to access and it's obviously a public right of way as well.
And just staying with the fence, but you're not keeping it 5 feet from the actual cul-de-sac. At some point in the middle of the cul-de-sac, then you're trying to reclaim right up to the boundary.
Correct.
And when you go around the cul-de-sac, the trees are on the inside.
On the property owner side, correct.
To answer the question about the arborvitae, I don't know who had it, but I spoke with the builder and there'll be an underground sprinkler system, so that would take care of that.
So the fence is gonna cut through that line of arborvitae at some point, like right there where the cul-de-sac begins. It's going to take a
Correct, it'll go
right,
at an
a
angle.
soft right.
Mhm.
And then, and did you give any thought to just keeping it uniform and keeping the fence inside the property line with, on the other side of the trees, all the way around for uniformity reasons?
I think the applicant wanted some visual, with the landscaping on their side as well, and speaking with the neighbor, it seemed like they were satisfied with just having this portion of Taft having landscaping. You're welcome.
Just one clarifying question. On the building coverage tabulation that you have in the sheet,
Mhm.
Existing coverage is exactly 13%. So it was, to the T, it was compliant.
Right, so that was the previous zoning approval that was granted. I don't know if it was earlier last year.
Construction of the house.
Yes, in early 2023. Yes,
So the entire additions, the patio, the two patios and the pool house is basically causing the aggravation of 3.6%,
correct.
roughly about 1,700 square feet, round numbers.
I'll take your word for the 1,700 square feet, yes.
It goes from 5,972 to 7,057, or 7,657.
Correct, yep, 1,700 about, plus or minus.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So your lot's 17,000 square feet over the minimum. Correct?
1,700, yes.
17,000. I'm talking about the lot size.
Oh, lot size, I'm sorry. Yes,
How is it possible we can't squeeze this thing into a mere 17,000 square foot overage?
the building coverage, lot
Yeah.
coverage, building codes.
Right, all those, yeah.
You know, I'll leave it to the architect as far as seeing if we could shrink some of the building coverage. You know, looking at the area, I don't think it's out of character as far as size and building coverage and lot coverage, just looking at, you know, visually what's out there.
And like I said, this fence, is there a plan B on this fence? Because having a big solid black fence is pretty harsh. It'd be nice to see the greenery and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we could discuss. Obviously, we would need a 4-foot fence at the minimum for
Well, that I understand.
building code and for township code.
Right.
But that's something we will discuss and we'll get back to you by the end of the meeting.
Anything else?
If the fence is an issue for members of the board, let us know what type of fence, and it's possible that we could implement.
Okay, well, when we get to that point, we'll discuss their, something else that the board would like it. Any other questions for this?
Mr. Frank Troya.
Do you swear affirm testimony about to give in tonight's hearing be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Your name, spelling your name for your record.
Sure. It's Frank Troia, Troia.
Thank you.
What are your educational and professional qualifications as an architect?
Sure. I am a project architect at Plan Architecture. I've been there for about 10 years now. I graduated from New Jersey Institute of Technology with a bachelor degree in architecture. I've been licensed in the state for about 7 years, and I am currently in good standing. I've also appeared before many boards throughout the state. This would be my first time in Milburn, but all for similar single-family, multifamily applications.
Thank you, your credentials are accepted. Please continue.
Thank you.
Please go.
Good evening, board. Thank you for having us tonight. Starting out on the first sheet here, A000. It's really just the sheet with some information on it, but also some pretty pictures just to give you an idea of what we are looking to propose back there. Starting in the top left picture, we have a view that gives us a view of the house that is currently being built with those proposed covered terraces. You see that pool as the middle grounds here, and then we have the pool house over to the right side of that image. Going to the top right image, we flipped it, so now we have the pool house on the left side. You start to see that pergola structure that's in front of the pool house, and the pool shot a bit on axis with the house and the proposed covered patios on the right side. Down at the bottom left, we have a center shot looking at the proposed pool house on that pergola. We have doors that open up there. Then you see those flanking symmetrical covered areas to the side of that. And then finally, we just have another image from further up in the yard, all again at the, I believe it's the east side of the this is the west side of the property, looking back at the pool with the house on the right and the pool house on the left. Flipping over to sheet A100, these are the floor plans of the house that is currently being built right now. Really not too much to focus on here. Currently, it's a 6-bedroom house that's being built, including a basement all the way through the second floor. And I really just want to highlight on here where the kitchen is located on the first floor. So we have the kitchen on this side of the house. That is off of a gallery. On the other side of that gallery is where the main living space is for that house. And off of those two areas are where we are proposing these covered terraces. Also, we have this single door entry on axis with the main entrance and foyer. So trying to keep symmetry in the design that we brought forward with the pool and the pool house. Flip into sheet A200. This is the foundation and basement plan, but really what we just want to show here is where we are proposing those covered terraces. We are not proposing any additional volume or basement space underneath there. Will be on-grade masonry terraces. On the pool house side, we are proposing a basement there. It's accessible from the outside, and it's really just meant to be additional storage for, just various items that would go along with the pool, or, their kids down the line have play equipment to store it in the wintertime. And all in between here, that's dashed. That's just showing the pool and the patios above. So flip into sheet A201. This is our first floor plan. So starting on the left side of the sheet here, we have a cut line running through the existing house, but we're maintaining to show where the kitchen and their eat-in area is, as well as their living area. So what we're proposing here are two covered patios off the existing house with a central uncovered patio. The patio down here located off the kitchen, that's meant to be more of an outdoor kitchen grilling area for the clients. Again, keeping its proximity close to the kitchen so that it's easy for them to use it and while they have guests over, and also for their every day-to-day function. At the top of the page here, off of their interior living room is where we're proposing an exterior living room, outdoor living area for them to have a sofa, another fireplace, really just to get to enjoy the outdoors during the summertime and I guess the fall and the spring when we have the opportunity. Coming off of this rear existing entry from the rear is where we have this line of symmetry that runs through the pool, all the way through symmetrical with the pool house and the opening there. This line of symmetry is in line with the, we have a sun deck located on the south side of the pool, and then we have a spa located on the north side, which is closer to the pool house. The pool itself is surrounded by an on-grade paver patio. We have a little fire pit area up towards the west end of the pool, and then down towards the east end, we just have a patio, and then it terraces down with some planter beds to landscape around it and really just look it nice and make it look nice and stately. Going to the program of the pool house itself, we really tried to keep it minimal. There's not much in there, but there is an open area here for entertainment where they have a fireplace, put a TV over. Off of that, on one side, we have a bathroom that's accessible from both the interior and exterior. And then on the other side, we have a storage/changing room that is again accessible from both the interior and exterior. And then also fitted within there is a small laundry closet for pool, bath towels, and other sorts. Coming around to the back side of the pool house structure, we would walk down a couple stairs to get down from the terrace and to just deal with the grading, so we don't have to build up the existing grading and mess with, retaining walls elsewhere. We thought that would be better. So we stepped down a few steps. That's where we have that enclosed outdoor shower, and then off of to the top of that outdoor shower is where we have the outdoor exit and entrance down into the basement. So it's not from the interior; it is from the exterior. Again, I'll just talk about, we have these covered side patios here. It is added to some building coverage, but we thought aesthetically it just really brought the, kept with the symmetry of the rest of the house, and we really thought it helped accent everything else. And it just provides an area where walking in and out into these exits where they can have a covered space. Coming up to the next sheet is A202. So really we're just showing here is the roof plan, but we're just trying to show that where we have these covered proposed terraces, we are not proposing to make them walkable. They are just going to maintain as flat roofs. We have existing terraces off of the primary bedroom that's being built, and then also off of the guest suite that's being built. So those are to remain, and then that would just be a flat roof that we are not planning at the moment to have as accessible. The roof plan of the pool house, I think, is fairly self-explanatory. We just have a simple gable structure that does have a sloping roof to mimic some of these sloping hip roofs that we have on the main house. And then we have that pergola structure located towards the front of that. Sheet A500, it shows the partial elevations of the right and left side of the existing home, and that's just where the covered terraces are. So on the side where we are proposing the outdoor kitchen, we have a solid wall there so that they can get cabinets in there, they can get their outdoor grill in there and not have to worry about vents or anything like that being seen. On the left side is where they're proposing the outdoor living, and we have it mostly open except for where we have the fireplace and chimney that would run up. The rear elevation, you can just see that we are matching a lot of the same trim lines on the existing house as they run around, matching the same columns that we've already designed for the front of the house and areas where we have pilasters on the front of the house. So really just designing everything to conform with the house as it already was designed. Moving to the pool house structure, you can see at the front elevation, again, everything is very symmetrical. Looking at the house, I don't know if you've gotten a chance to get out to the site, but it is all, symmetry was a big proponent of the design. So we're just trying to keep with that. We have the gentle slopes in the gable. We have some of the arches that are where those covered areas are. And again, it all just ties into the existing structure. As far as the materials go, and I did prepare an exhibit for the board. So I guess we can call this, I think we're up to A3. All right. And there's many copies here, so just feel free to pass them out. And it's just to provide testimony, additional testimony that what you're going to see there is a picture of the front of the current house as it's in construction.
Can you, as we're passing around there three, just describe what it is
Sure.
and the date of it?
Sure. So it is dated March 18th, so that's today of 2024. And the picture is a picture of the house that is currently being built. And we just wanted to show, in real life, not just the renderings, the material that we are proposing for the pool house so that it matches the existing house. So for the pool house, we're proposing mostly hardy plank lap siding with a smooth finish in the color Arctic white as it is on that picture. For the stone, we have a thin veneer stone that is square and rect in shape. And again, it's matching the existing house that we already have. All of the trim that you would see in the elevations will be hardy trim, so it matches the same color. And the roof will match the same color roof. Going around to the right side, you can see how far that existing trellis or the proposed trellis and pergola will extend out. You get a glimpse of the screened-in outdoor shower in the rear of that structure. And that's, pretty much it. Again, everything we're doing is just trying to complement the house that was currently approved and is being built today.
Any questions for this witness?
What's the floor to ceiling in the basement of the pool house?
We don't have that worked out yet, but it'd probably be around 8 feet, about 8 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's not proposed for anything other than storage, I assume?
no, that's it. I mean, honestly, it's in there. I don't even know if the clients are dead set on having it, but we'd like to just, if we couldn't get it approved and they want to make the decision later, they don't want to build it. But every time as an architect or designer, when somebody asks me, should I do a crawl space versus a basement for a slab on grade? I look at them, I say, well, the cost isn't that much more. You might as well do the basement because the way I find it is I always need more storage. So I always try to.
That outdoor shower, is that included in your coverage analysis?
Well, it's not covered. It's just a screen fence around it, like a screening around it. So there's nothing overhead.
So it's on the slab though, I would assume.
Yes, I guess it is on the slab, but I would defer that to John to see if he included that or not.
And also in the pool house, you actually do have a shower, right? In the bathroom.
We do. That one's more of like, I guess the outdoor shower would just be more for the kids if they're playing in the yard, get dirty, so they don't have to go inside somewhere
Dog
that's
or something.
finished. Yeah, or a dog, yeah, exactly.
We need to get confirmation about whether the outdoor showers included in your coverage calculation.
So no, but we could add that in there. I'll get you that calculation.
How many square feet is that?
Yep. Get you.
Large, so it's-
32 square feet. I'll get you that calculation if you want. It's yours. Would bring it to 36.7%.
Any other questions?
Actually, maybe the board could answer this for me. If the proposed pool house only has a setback of 32.1 from the front, from Taft, right?
Correct.
You're required, what are you required?
Per the average setback for front yard, it's 75.1.
Good, good, that's fine.
Any questions from the audience for either one of these witnesses? Come on down.
No, just a question.
Any other questions for?
Who has the fence? The exhibit?
For the fence?
You have it, okay. What was that?
So these are questions only of either one of these individuals, okay? No statements, and we'll have time for that later. So
Okay.
Feel free, your name and your address, sir.
David Lane, 15 Taft Drive, Short Hill, New Jersey. I'm across the street. So really, it's statements, but I do have one question.
Go ahead.
On the building coverage, I think it was said that it was 3.6% additional.
Yes, I believe it's,
Shouldn't it be measured by measuring the percentage increase over the maximum permitted?
I believe that's what they are
Do you have,
considering it as, because the existing was 13%, which is the permitted.
so how much bigger is 16.6% than 13%?
I think that's what they testified to as almost 1,700 or around 1,700
In
square
terms
feet.
of percentage?
Oh, in percentage, it's 3.6%.
No, no.
Understand your
How
question.
much bigger is 16.6% than 13% in terms of percentage?
So you're asking 1,700 square feet, what's the percentage of that?
What's the percentage of the
Talk like 20.
building coverage? It's 27%.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Where's your, Mr. Lane, where's your, please come here a second. Just for the benefit of the board, just looking at A1 right there, where's your property?
This one right here.
Thank
So our
you.
driveway is opposite that back driveway that currently exists. My neighbors, the guests, they own this property, they're in the cul-de-sac. And our neighbors to the other side, the convergences are on the other side.
Thank you.
Like I said, there will be plenty of time for comment.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions from the crowd? Come on up. We'll need name and address for
Sure.
the crowd and of course,
So-
questions.
Matthew Guest, 21 Taft Drive. So I'm in this property right across the cul-de-sac. Just a simple question on you said it was 35 feet, 35 square feet for the covered shower or the outdoor shower. What about, is the pool equipment, have you included that calculation in the coverage ratio?
Yes. So the calculation includes that as well, yes.
So the 35 is inclusive of both the shower and the equipment?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Michelle Hubertus. I live at 1 Taft Drive.
I just saw your last name.
Hubertus. the old house,
Wait, and what's your address?
one Taft. I have a question about drainage. Somebody said something about extra drainage. Can you please articulate what that is? As you know, for people who don't know, it's an unpaved road and there's no town storm drains on our street. So I'm quite concerned since FEMA's been to my house more than once.
Yeah, sure. So, per the township code, the requirement is to detain any increase in impervious coverage, or any impervious coverage actually, from roof areas, patios, excluding driveways. So just to put it into perspective, the house that was there previously, before this was built, and the improvements was about 13,000 square feet, just shy. What we're detaining, that means the roof, that water and all the water that we're capturing, for this project is a little over 13,000 square feet. So we're detaining everything that was on the site previously. So what we're doing is we're capturing 3 inches of runoff essentially off of all impervious coverage and putting it underground in a seepage pit.
So you're only putting in what was there before. You've assumed what was there before was adequate.
So there was no drainage previously on the site. Everything was runoff that went straight to Taft Drive or to Adams. So what I'm trying to say is now what we're proposing is we're actually going to capture all the impervious on site. The only thing that's not being captured is the driveway, which is permitted by the township code, and that's going towards Adams.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is all the impervious other than the front driveway being captured?
Correct.
And does that include the pool?
Well, the pool is being captured internally, but when we sized the drywall system, we sized it as if the pool was generating runoff. You're welcome.
Also, part of what the drawing shows access to build this through Taft Drive.
Yep. So,
In light of that being a stone road, why can't there be access through Taft?
yep. So that was one of the concerns from the neighbors, and the applicant has agreed that they will not access construction off of Taft.
Okay. Any other questions for either of those individuals from the
Yes,
audience?
you said, so you have an approved grading plan from engineering for the construction of the house.
Correct.
So if you get approval for the pool, you will then submit to her. You may need additional, okay.
Yeah, it would be obviously subject to Martha's approval. Yeah.
Any other questions? Come on down. Your name and address for the record, please.
So I'm Paige Guest. I'm at Taft Drive right across the street, so directly across the cul-de-sac,
You're
21 Taft. Quick question I know you're building this pool. How are you going to, because we have that stone road, we just want to know how you are going to access construction for the pool,
Okay. So.
what you're going to do.
Yep, no problem. I can answer that. So originally on the plans, we did show a construction access off of Taft. The applicant has agreed to take that off, and everything will be off of Adams.
Anything else? Go ahead, Mr. Still.
Catherine Samat?
Good evening, board members. Catherine Simon.
Do you swear from testimony about to give in tonight's hearing the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Your name, spelling your name for the record?
Catherine, last name spelled S-A-R-M-A-D, Sarmad.
Is it a K or a C? Catherine?
K, sorry, K-A-T-H-E-R-I-N-E.
Your educational and professional qualifications
Sure.
as a professional planner.
I have a bachelor's degree from the University of Michigan. I have a master's in urban and regional planning from the Edward J. Blaustein School at Rutgers University. I've been licensed as a professional planner in the state of New Jersey since 2017. I'm also a member of the American Institute of Certified Planners, which is the national accreditation for planners. I have not testified before this board. I largely do not testify privately. I represent municipalities just like this one as board planner. I represent the borough of Florham Park, the township of Randolph, the township of Springfield, the township of Scotch Plains, and numerous other towns that my firm represents as a capacity of.
And what firm are you associated with?
I'm with Harbor Consultants, business address 320 North Ave East in Cranford, New Jersey.
Your credentials are accepted by the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So I just wanted to, give the lay of the land. Again, this is 35 Adams Avenue, block 3006, lot 21. The lot is 46,000 95 square feet, which is about 1.06 acres. The zone, the R3 zone that it is located in, is a single-family residential zone that requires a minimum lot size of 29,000 square feet. This R3 zone is pursuant to the requirements of section 606.2 of the Township Development Code. And the homeowner, as noted before, previously received approvals and building permits to construct the residential dwelling, which is currently underway and is well underway under construction. The applicant is seeking approval for largely outdoor features, construction of outdoor features to the site, including the covered patio area, outdoor dining area, in-ground pool, surrounding patio, pool house, perimeter fencing. I had a chance to visit the site, so if you have any questions about any of the existing conditions that you asked questions about before, I can answer those. I also had a chance to review the Township of Millbird's master plan to see what any of the goals and objectives related to the R3 zone or residential zones in general were. The last master plan was updated in 2018, and under the section entitled Status of 2008 Issues and Objectives on page 14, it talks a little bit about the R3 zones and some of the residential kind of issues that have been going on in the township. So it noted that there had been a number of development activity in the 2002 master plan, which involved single-family homes, including the replacement of existing homes, such as this one. It also noted that a large part of construction activity in 2008 had also been in residential areas, so that trend had continued in the 2002 and 2008 master plans, and noted some of the building permits, which was evidence that there was demo permits and construction permits for single-family residents that kind of offset one another. And 2008 plan noted that this pattern was not uncommon in desirable built-up suburban communities like Millburn, where the trend has been the redevelopment of existing properties with larger and more expensive homes. In 2018, the current status noted that the tear-down rebuild trend is still continuing and showed similar trends in the building and demo permits. Page 43 of the 2008 master plan includes goals and objectives. Goal 1 being to encourage appropriate land uses that promote the character of the township as a small suburb of the highest quality. And an objective related to that goal was to protect the character of established residential neighborhoods and encourage land use and development at appropriate scale and density. And also included on page 48 recommendations for the master plan, which noted that the planning board recognizes that the single family character of the R3 through R6 zones, the single family and two family home character of the R7 zone, and the multifamily character of the R8 zones should be preserved and protected to avoid development that is out of sync with the underlying zoning and neighborhood character. As such, they recommended that the planning board recommended that the following actions be taken. Promote clear, user-friendly, and transparent application, review, and public hearing processes for development proposals and applications so as to ensure an effective and well-publicized mechanism for residents to report quality of life issues and code violations. There was 2 other recommendations with that are not pertinent. And then another recommendation was to monitor recent teardowns and new construction in single-family districts to determine whether additional zoning modifications are necessary to protect neighborhood character. With that overview and the master plan analysis, I'm going to talk about a little bit about the variances that are being requested, which is why we're here this evening. There are 4 C variances, bulk variances that are being requested relief from. One of those is under section 609.1.b, which is under supplementary regulations for accessory uses in residential districts. Again, this is related to the proposed construction in the rear yard of the pool house, the patio, and the pool, as well as the mechanical equipment, which are technically in a front yard because of the location of the lot along Taft Drive. Additionally, under section 609.6.a requires that fences and walls are not permitted in the front yard, whereas a solid 6-foot fence is proposed in the front yard in the rear of the property along Taft Drive. 2 additional variances from section 606.2e.2.a for the R3 zone, which is a maximum building coverage, 13% is permitted, 13% exists, and 16.6% is proposed. From 606.2e.2.b, maximum lot coverage of 35% is permitted, 13.2% exists, and 36.7, as amended tonight with the addition of the shower, is proposed. There are 2 kinds of C variances that are outlined under the MLUL. The C1 variance is known as a hardship variance, and in order to qualify for this,
Catherine,
sure,
before you-
sure.
Before you get to that, you just talked about the variances.
Yes.
There was a reference earlier by, I think it was Mr. Caulfield, about whether there's a front yard setback variance that's required off of Taft. Do you agree with that as the planner?
Technically, that's an accessory structure, and so
Okay.
in looking at the bulk standards, there's no front yard setback requirement for accessory structures. It's because they're not permitted in a front yard. So there's a rear yard and a side yard for accessory structures, but not a front yard setback. As I read the regs, a front yard setback is related to the principal buildings because it's separate one exists for the accessory. So I did not interpret it. I'd be glad to put on testimony if
He raised it, so I want to get it for the record. Keep going.
Sure. And if anyone has any questions while I'm going, feel free to interject. And so the C1, the hardship variance requires that the applicant prove that by reason of exceptional narrowness, shallowness, or shape of a specific piece of property, or by reason of exceptional topographic conditions or physical features uniquely affecting a specific piece of property, or by reason of extraordinary and exceptional situation uniquely affecting the structure lawfully existing thereon, the strict application of any regulations would result in peculiar and exceptional practical difficulties to, or exceptional and undue hardship upon the developer of such property. And a C2 variance is known as a flexible C. Two proofs must be provided to receive approval. They must show that the purposes of the MLUL would be advanced by deviation from the zoning ordinance requirement, and that also that the variance can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without substantial impairment of the intention premise of the zone plan and zoning ordinance, which is otherwise known as negative criteria. And so it's my opinion that two of the variances fall into the category of a C1 hardship variance, and two of the variances fall into the category C2, and I'll talk a little bit about why. For the C1 hardship variance, I believe that the nature of the site, it's very unique. In that Taft Drive, when you look at the township tax map, specifically tax map number 30, you'll see that Taft Drive is not recognized on the tax map as a municipal road, as an improved road. It's a 40-foot access easement at the back of the property, which actually, cuts into the block and lot here into the site. And so it's just recognized as an access easement, which is a little bit strange. And as a result of it being, improved and utilized as a road, it creates an additional frontage, which creates a through lot situation, which is, pretty unique. But I will note that there are two other lots to the east, lot 22 and lot 23, that have a similar condition, caused also by the access easement that runs to the rear of their property as well. Additionally, to the southwest, Adams Avenue has a similar condition in that there's another access easement in front of this property that affects probably one or two other lots that have through on Lake Road and Adams Ave. So it's not entirely specific to this piece of property, but I will say that it is, I think, a unique condition that you don't see often. That there's an access easement rather than a roadway that's creating through lot conditions. And so, as I mentioned, the variance condition from the relief requested from the accessory uses for the pool house, patios, and mechanical equipment located in the front yard along Taft, I believe would be a hardship condition because if it otherwise did not have frontage on Taft, it would just be in the rear yard and it would be compliant. It's very similar. Are the condition for the fence, which the relief is being requested for the fence, which is considered in the front yard. I think there are some questions raised about the design of the fence. I think indicated from the applicant, the builder, if the design is in question, certainly I think they can entertain other options than a black fence. It's intended to provide some privacy because it is a through lot for the homeowner. But regardless of the fact that the fence is being proposed in a front yard, landscaping has been designed at the outside of the fence in order to create additional screening at the outside and inside of the fence. I also had a chance to visit the site today, and I think the fencing is an improvement from what exists there today. It's a green chain link fence, pretty much almost right up to the curb line of the cul-de-sac bowl. So I do think that's an improvement. The two other variances, I believe, would be considered C2 or flexible C variance. And so the proof is a little higher, I believe. And so I'll get into that. The homeowner's requesting, the applicant's requesting a maximum building coverage of 16.6%, whereas 13% is what exists for the home that's under construction right now. The applicant is building a new home to relocate their family within the township. They're building a new house. They're looking to create a forever home. And the outdoor improvements that are proposed are really intended to complement the investment of that and for the enjoyment of the children and family to make this, a forever home.
Excuse me a second. So was all of this contemplated in the original build?
I can't answer that question. I don't know the answer to that question. You could maybe ask one of the other witnesses. And as discussed by the engineer, the homeowner is proposing adequate and in excess dry well and stormwater management system to help mitigate any concerns about stormwater, even taking into account, a pool, which is a basin, although it doesn't percolate, taking that into account for the stormwater calculations. And so I believe that the granting of this variance specifically will advance the purposes outlined in the municipal land use law, more specifically as part of this site to encourage municipal action, purpose A, to encourage municipal action to guide the appropriate use of development of all lands in the state in a manner which will promote the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. Purpose C, to provide adequate light, air, and open space. Purpose I, to promote a desirable visual environment through creative development techniques and good civic design and arrangement. As far as the other variants, I believe that this is for the 36.7% impervious lot coverage, whereas 35% is permitted and 13.2% exists. This is largely related to, this is all the improvements, but there are, the lot coverage includes the building coverage and the additional patios and covered patio spaces. I just want to note also that the pool is 1,225 square feet, which is accounts for approximately 2.7% of that proposed coverage. So if the pool wasn't, as the engineer noted, Mr. Manila noted, in some cases, in some towns, pools are not considered impervious because they act as a basin, they collect stormwater. And I just want to note that swimming pools are a little different than pavement. They don't create runoff. They will, retain some water, but they won't create additional excessive runoff under reasonable conditions. And so for that reason, I believe that this will also advance the purposes, granting of this variance will also advance the purposes of the municipal land use law for the same purposes, purpose A, purpose C, and purpose I, and I can recite those if you'd like for the record. In relation to the master plan, which I went through some analysis of the most recent 2018 master plan, which included kind of a history of the 2002 and 2008 master plans, I do believe that there's been a recognition that there has been tear down rebuilds, as mentioned in the 2008 master plan, very common for desirable communities. I represent other communities just like this, where that's the norm, where older homes are reconstructed. And I don't think the master plan was kind of silent about if that's a problem or not. I think they said there's a continued trend, but I did see that there are recommendations related to, making sure that if the trend was going south, that the zoning be looked at again to, maybe put some protections in place if that was a problem. And so I believe that this is not going to impair the intended purpose of the zone plan and the master plan for that matter. I think that these site improvements are part of an overall proposed development for a family to create a forever home and to enjoy a number of the outdoor amenities associated with that. I don't think it's out of character with the surrounding neighborhood. I think it's been proven to further the goals, the intended purpose of the municipal land use law, and I think that they can be granted without substantial impairment of the zone plan and master plan.
So you've heard of the master plan several times and trying to square your negative criteria. And how they allude to new development and tear downs and so forth. But from a planning perspective, when you have a home that you tear down and you start from scratch, and a lot that's 17,000 square feet over the lot minimum, and then you exceed the coverage, how's that good planning?
So I totally agree with you. I'm usually on the other side of the table, you know, asking the same questions. And I think that in this case, you know, you mentioned before this is an oversized lot. I think the question was what does the coverage look like in relation to the minimum lot size? Generally, larger lots can accommodate, you know.
You have that benefit, right?
Yeah, they're trying to build off of that. They're trying to they accommodated basically the max size of the house. I don't know if it was if the outdoor amenities were contemplated, or at what stage that they were added in. So
would you agree that a pool and a pool house could lawfully exist on this lot?
yeah, I believe so. I know that you'd ask a question earlier if they could be smaller.
Well, I'm saying lawfully exist, right? However you want to phrase it. Right?
Yeah, I think as I mentioned before, I think you know, the pool itself is 2.7% of the coverage. So you could
Well, I mean,
you could
choose your poison, right?
well, the pool, I just bring the pool there because the pool is very different from a building or pavement. So
Right, but I mean, I realize saying that, you know, in Milburn, it's contemplated, it's got what it is.
it is what it is. Yeah.
It doesn't matter what the town does. But all the accoutrements here, do you think that could be scaled back potentially and avoid having a brand new house on a blank slate here? Blank slate, right? You can do whatever you want. Why would you increase the intensity of use of the property over what the max allows?
Well, I think right now, you know, as I mentioned before, the homeowner is looking to make an investment to move, you know, to relocate here, and they really want to make this a forever home. And so they're looking for the, you know, the highest, they're looking for what they've designed, what they've spent the time designing, to, you know, seek the variance conditions under the proofs.
Okay, any other questions?
They're in this neighborhood. Can you point to other instances where building coverage and lot coverage have been exceeded?
I did not do an analysis
So
of,
you don't look at
coverage.
other, whether variances were applied for, or did you look at the tax records to see what, you know, even what FAR is in the area?
I did not look at the surrounding, you know, I felt that this property stood on its own. I know the previous home that was demolished in order to build this was pretty large. You know, if you look at the setback map, it was pretty large, and it did utilize access from both Taft and Adams, which I don't know if that, you know, what previously, I think this is an improvement from what previously existed there. I think it's an improvement as far as the coverage and the arrangement of the buildings on the property. I think it's an improvement as the access, being a single access to the property and not utilizing Taft Drive, which it's not a big road. It's 40 feet wide. It's not paved. And so I think diverting any traffic, any driveways from Taft is an improvement as well. So I think looking at it in the overall scheme, it's a big improvement.
Did this property ever have access from Taft?
I believe the engineer mentioned that it did. It had a driveway.
And is that driveway existing right now?
When I drove there was a wooden board. It didn't look like it was there. It looked like it had been ripped out. I'm not sure. Is it there? Oh, the apron. Well, the apron at the curb line was, but it had like a wood board, like it was not in good condition. I don't. Yeah.
So the intent is that the driveway will be removed as part of the project.
Well, I mean, when the approvals were originally granted for the principal residence, was the access off of Taft contemplated?
No, so it's not shown on the approved plans that were submitted.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the planner on the board?
I believe you testified that Taft is actually a private right of way, it's not part of the public right of way in the town.
It's an access easement. It's very strange.
So the neighbors that have spoke here before, they actually access their homes through that access easement.
They do. The access easement is on the frontage of their property and the rear of the properties that front on Adams.
Now, do any of those other neighboring properties, like, do they have any structures in their front yards that are within 30 feet of the boundary of the right of way line?
The ones that have through access or the ones on,
Are there any other structures, accessory structures on Taft?
you know, it was difficult. I did drive by and look at the site. It was difficult with privacy fencing on the rear of Adams along Taft. And with the existing mature trees, it was very difficult to see into the backyards to tell, like, I don't know.
Anything else? Anything from the audience for planner in regards to this? Questions, sorry. There's questions only this one. Yep.
Take them over there.
Absolutely, no. Yeah, you have to stand for the microphone, please.
Thank you.
Just identify yourself, your address again.
David Lane, 15 Taft Drive, directly across the street. Did you say earlier that the pool is part of the water retention system that catches water?
I did not say that. I said that the stormwater system has been designed with it as if it were just straight, as if it were runoff, if it was creating runoff.
Did you measure the road, the width of the road, when you went down Taft Drive?
I did not, but it was definitely smaller than 40 feet.
Yeah.
Much smaller.
Okay, I'll ask this in a question. Were you aware that it's 17 feet actually?
I could probably guess it was around, yeah.
And so 40 foot is the right of way?
Yeah.
Do you have any information about the prior home? Because you sort of said that it was, you implied that this is an improvement over the prior home.
Beyond what, I've only been part of the project since the new home's been under construction, so I only have aerial and historical aerial, and
Okay.
from what the engineer explained.
So then you wouldn't be aware that that prior home had a major reconstruction and renovation just 2 years before it was torn down?
No.
Also, I think it was touched upon, but just to ask this question again, is the building coverage overage that's proposed, 16.3 over 13, which would be 27%, is that consistent with the master plan?
When you say 27%, are you talking about the coverage that's proposed in relation to the minimum lot size?
Deviation from the
No,
standard.
he's saying.
Deviation from
Oh,
the
the
standard.
deviation. Oh, understood. In my experience, in my opinion, when I represent boards and critique applications, the impervious lot coverage is a percentage. It's a proportion.
Let's talk about building coverage.
I'm sorry, the building coverage or lot coverage are both they're intended to be proportions. And so I look at the deviation more as like a numerical number, or, I look at it as a whole, despite the site being oversized, despite, seeking a variance. It's a proportion of the site size, which is the intention of why that bulk standard exists the way it does.
So in your experience, do you see a lot of 27% deviations that you bring to boards and say that they're consistent with the master plan?
Again, I don't recognize it as a 20%. I see it as 3% over the impervious coverage calculation that's permitted by the zone. Do I see that? Absolutely. I see all, everything you can imagine.
Okay, so the fence that was originally proposed, and yes, we did have conversations to move it back, but it was originally proposed a 6-foot fence right along the property line. Were you prepared to come here and say that that was also consistent with the master plan?
Can you rephrase that?
So the original plan, the plan you're showing today, shows a fence
Well,
along.
but wait, hold on a second. So the applicant, to its credit, came in.
Yes.
And right off the bat, modified, which they're
Partially.
permitted to do. They modified,
Mhm.
which they're permitted to do, the application, okay? So it's fair to ask questions of the planner based on the modified application, because that's what's been presented to the board and to the public for the consideration of this board. But I think it's a little out of bounds to ask questions about a prior plan that has now since been revised.
Understood.
Go ahead.
Okay. Question number 14 on the application asks, state what efforts have been made to obtain the result you wish to accomplish without violating the zoning ordinance, such as relocating the planned construction. And there's and not applicable answer. Now, you may not be the one to answer this, but were there any efforts made to try to build it within the permitted envelope?
I think what we're seeking here is, I put on proofs for the variance relief, so I believe that, I did not prepare that application as part of this application, but I did not prepare it, so that question would not be for me.
Thank you very much. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other questions for the planner in this case from the audience?
No further witnesses.
Thank you very much.
this point, we will open it up for comment from the audience. So if you have a comment, please feel free to come forward regarding this application. I just request that people do not get repetitive in their comments, make your point, and try to be concise. So if you do have a comment, please come forward. We will be swearing you in at this point. Once again, name and address, and we will be swearing you in as well.
Thank you.
Just raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony about to be given tonight's hearing to be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I
Your
do.
name and address for the record.
David Lane, 15 Taft Drive, Short Hills, New Jersey. Okay, so first of all, I do want to thank the homeowner and the attorneys for engaging in discussion with us to alleviate some of the concerns that we have in mitigation. I do want to talk about a couple things. First of all, and somewhat unprecedented in Short Hills, there is an unpermitted fence here
Okay,
along.
wait. And when you're gonna give testimony or statement, and you're referring to an exhibit, you have to say for the benefit of the court reporter, what exhibit you're referring to and what you're specifically pointing to.
Okay, may I use your exhibit? May I use it?
Well, it's in the record, so you can refer
Okay,
to it. Go
so I'm
ahead.
going to refer to this exhibit right here, which number, I don't know.
It's A1.
So I'm going to point to Taft Drive,
Go ahead.
okay? And I'm going to show that this is the guest house, this is my house, and this is the Hubertus's house.
You're pointing to properties to the north of Taft Drive.
Yes, I'm pointing to the properties on the opposite side of the Taft Drive from the applicant's house.
Go ahead.
Okay. So there is, by including this fence, we would now have, this is over 450 feet of fence along Taft Drive. That would be unprecedented that you'd have front yard fences this length in Taft Drive. In fact, the ordinance, it speaks about where it's permitted to have a fence in a front yard, and it talks about South Orange Avenue. I would submit that Taft Drive is the polar opposite of South Orange Avenue. So when the ordinance was being drafted, they chose to make an exception because of extreme hardships. That's South Orange Avenue. That's not Taft Drive. Secondly, and maybe most importantly, we have a deer problem throughout the town. We have a particularly bad deer problem over here on Taft Drive. What happens when the fence goes across the entirety of Taft Drive is the deer have nowhere to go but stay on Taft Drive or come on our properties. Where this is most dangerous and our very large hardship is that when cars are coming down the road, if they can't go one way because there's a fence, they're going to dash the other way. And that means you're either cutting in front of your car or they're cutting onto your property. And I don't have copies for everybody, but typically this is sort of like what you see. And I took this
Just hold it up and refer to it.
Okay, so this is two pictures of the same deer. And so here's the deer popping out of the woods where the fence is next door to them. And here's what happens when the deer pops out and stares at you while you're in your car. And you have a little showdown with the deer.
So
So-
Mr. Lane, we can't just show pictures. We're gonna mark them,
So-
because now you make them part of the record. So we're gonna mark this as O1.
Do you want me to write it down?
We're gonna, O1, which is gonna be a 2-page exhibit of a photo of a deer on Taft Drive. How about that? All right.
O1A and O1B?
Refer to it as a deer.
Very nifty antlers. I'd rather not have them though facing me aggressively. Who do I hand this to?
That can go either.
I'll put deer/buck.
Yeah.
How about that?
10.
10 point.
I have other ones.
He has a name too.
Eileen, well, other ones. So regarding the drainage issue, which again, I'm not going necessarily in order related to the lot coverage and the building coverage. On Taft Drive, we don't have any township storm drains. We actually had to put our own storm drains in and put our own dry wells in. What we do have is at the end of the block over here, around this curve somewhere, is the one storm drain we have. And this is at the end of the line. This goes all the way down Adams Avenue. So when we get big rains, we're at the end of the line. We have a huge bottleneck. Most of that bottleneck actually ends up in my neighbor's yard, the Hubertus's. but a fair share of it ends up in my yard. I haven't asked the guests what they get. So this is another picture, just happens to have a deer in it. But this is what happens in our yard when there's too much water. So now, let me just say this. The neighbors, the Gunnells have said they have drainage and they're going to not change the grading of the property to have runoff come on Taft Drive. To the extent they're given a variance, we'd like to have this be part of one of the conditions. So do you want this in evidence as well?
Sure, why not?
Mark it, note
Yeah,
two.
I already did it.
Swimming deer.
Drinking.
Yeah.
So I could go on and on about the deer problem, having a situation where one side of Taft Drive gets all the deer and the other doesn't, with the deer standing in the middle of the road and
Can
the
I
deer.
just say what this has to do with our
Okay.
application?
That's what I-
Well, it's so here's what I.
Wait. So I think so far, I think it's appropriate to raise an issue about the fence. There was testimony about stormwater management, so you asked a question about stormwater. But Mr. Cercello's right, you have to be narrowly focused in your comments about the relief that the board is to consider.
Understood.
Go ahead.
So with respect to how far back the fence goes, only part of it, there's been discussion about pushing back. The other part, and I guess I'll leave this probably to my neighbor, to the extent that there isn't a buffer between Taft Drive and the fence that's there, that's where the deer are going to go when cars come down the road. If they can't get into a buffer on one side, they're going to run out in front of your car. And more than once, deer have, with the existing fencing that's there next door, run out in front of the car, or as we've experienced, as my neighbors have experienced, when you're trying to walk your dogs, you're in a standoff with deer, and you have to sort of position yourself so they go that way as opposed to just walking down the road. So that's a little bit of a hardship for us. So one of the things we're going to ask for, or I'm asking for, to the extent that they are granted, well, let me cut back. Our property, the property lines are in the middle of the road. Our driveway is 17 feet away from the Belgian block curb line on their property. So we're not 40 feet away. We're not even 20 feet away. We're 17 feet away. So the further back fencing goes, down Taft Drive and around the cul-de-sac, the more room deer will have to clear out when we're coming down the road. The more room we'll have to place snow when snow has to be plowed. And generally, the safer condition it will be. But from a visual perspective, having a fence that high, close to the road line, would be very difficult to look at. Now, again, I want to credit the homeowners and the attorney. They've agreed to push the fence back. We'd like to see it a little bit further back than 10 feet, but if they're going to fit 2 rows of trees and put the fence, I think that does mitigate part of the situation, but not all the situation. So this is one of the reasons why we're concerned about the negative effects. Finally, as part of my comments, the statute mandates that there shouldn't be substantial detriment to the public good, and it focuses on impact on the specific adjacent properties affected by the permitted deviations. So in this particular situation, because of the way that Taft Drive is an environmentally sensitive area, it's not a paved road, it doesn't have drainage, it's narrow, has a lot of deer in it. We're asking that the board consider all of these factors when if you're considering the variance to be part of the conditions. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else have any comments regarding this application? One down the street, yes. Name and address for the record. and we'll
Wait,
swing it.
do you swear from testimony about to give in tonight's hearing be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Name and address.
Matthew Guest, 21 Taft Drive,
Spell your last name, please.
Guest. I just have a couple very brief comments to make. The first is I also credit the homeowner and their representatives, and not only now, but also I spoke to the homeowner at the commencement of the construction, and he actually agreed previously to move At one time, it was expected that excavation trucks would be using Taft Drive, and he, after we had a conversation, agreed to shift the traffic so it wasn't traversing Taft, which was very much appreciated. And I appreciate the statement about not using Taft for construction. It's not suitable for that purpose. So that's the first thing I'd like to acknowledge. I would like it to be considered that I believe that the construction site has not been well maintained. And I don't have any pictures to put into exhibit, but it's something we've seen every day for whatever the more than 2 years under which this has been. It started off in a well-maintained state, but the gates are never closed. The fence is falling over both on the Taft Drive side and on the Adams side. That's something that I think should be remedied immediately, and certainly I wouldn't want to have to look at that as the construction intensity increases on the Taft Drive side. The last thing I would note is I just want to echo the concerns about the fencing. I appreciate the accommodation that's been suggested. That style of fencing, and I also appreciate the acknowledgement that there will be a different style. I think that would, and I'm not sure how that fits in within the statutory considerations, but it would dramatically alter our sight line from our property, and just in terms of the style of the surrounding properties, I think it would be a dramatic departure to have a fence of that style and that close to the sight line. So I think with a little more buffer and with a different style, it could be an improvement in terms of our enjoyment of our property. And that's all I have to add.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments regarding this application? Anything further? No. Then I'll close the public portion of this hearing. The board members, what do you think?
I'll just start. Am I on? No. Someone got off on that. I'll start by saying I'm concerned about several things, but the first thing I'm concerned about is the fencing, which I think is out of character with the neighborhood. It's too tall, it's too solid, it's too dark. I think it would impact the view of the character of the neighborhood, so I would not be in favor of this fence. This type of fence, this height, solid, dark, metal, I don't feel like that fits into the neighborhood there. My second concern is, of course, even the modest building coverage, which it seems like a small number, but it's such a huge property. I was trying to count how many kitchens there's going to be. I think there's going to be a kitchen inside the house, a kitchen out in the outdoor grilling area, and then I think you said there was going to be a kitchen possibly or cooking some sort in the proposed pool house. And I'm thinking, wow, that's a lot of kitchens. You're allowed to have kitchens, but it's a lot to ask when you're asking for 3% over, particularly in consideration of the drainage issues that have been spoken about that may or may not be mitigated completely. So anyway, I wrap that up. Just concerns.
I can go next. So I echo very much the same concerns that Regina has. And to further it, as I alluded to earlier, we're starting with a clean slate, clean sheet of paper on a very large lot. All of this can be contemplated beforehand. And it seems strange when you come in front of the zoning board, this massive lot, and all of this going on, that it couldn't have been somewhat thought about to say, hey, look, could we possibly do this and keep it more modest? And that's the thing that I think is the real deficiency when it comes to proving a C2 variance. That when you have a new lot, as the planner alluded to in 2008 and so forth, regarding redevelopment, and then you basically say, yeah, we're going to redevelop it, and oh yeah, we're going to even exceed this massive lot coverage ability on this lot. This lot can take a lot of stuff, yet it still goes past that, which I think is definitely detrimental to the master plan and zoning plan. Now this fence, I don't think it's an adequate buffer. I would like to see this fence brought in a minimum of 15 feet off that back property line and continue at the 15 feet all the way around till it meets the cul-de-sac on the far side. And then have adequate planting in there. I would also only like to see a 4-foot estate fence. Driving down Taft Drive to see all that fencing is absolutely brutal. It is not a nice aesthetic. And I realize that these people's backyards, but for the people that live on Taft Drive, to them with the stair fencing, it's really not attractive. And it's certainly not in keeping with Stuart Hartshorn's vision of lawns rolling into lawns, which is what, his whole thing was. And here we have basically a road where one whole side of it's gated. So, that's not something I think that's particularly good looking. There's a lot of things that can be done with this fencing to not push it out to the property line. And as far as I'm concerned, the way it's currently, I would agree there's a hardship here, because it's a very unusual situation to have a street behind you, a street in front of the house. That's not common in town. But I think the treatment is certainly not well thought out. Any other thoughts?
I'll go. I agree entirely with what my two predecessors just said. I would even add to that the accessory use in the back. I was gonna suggest the same thing about moving the fence back further than what they have. If that's the case, then you're gonna, it's gonna have a close enough to that accessory use in the back. I was surprised that none of the neighbors said anything about having a building, like a pretty substantial building within your sight lines. But I think even that's too close. So I would add that part of it. So.
No, I'm not gonna belabor it. I agree with the comments of my colleagues.
Same, I would echo the same comments.
So out of courtesy to council, what would you like to do?
Just please hold the vote, and may I just broach a couple of topics since I'm here, or no?
No. We're not doing that.
Okay.
If you'd like to carry.
Hold the vote,
Okay,
hold the
that's
vote.
fine. When can you hear it next?
My next open event is May 6th.
Works for me. Work for you guys?
May 6th. Right?
May 6th or May 20th? May 6th or May 20th.
May 6th?
May 6th. So I will say this, if you have any new plans, please submit them in time. Also, I highly recommend you take into consideration what occurred here in the comments today. There will be no further notice given regarding this, so please keep an eye out on the website if there's any plans that are submitted. For the neighbors that are here tonight, once those are submitted, you can come to town hall, or if they upload to the website, you can review any other revisions that come that way.
And Eileen, when do they need to be submitted? If they're gonna be revised plans, just so the public is aware.
10 days prior, so like the third week of April.
Okay.
I mean, 10 days.
So assume 10 days prior to the hearing, plans will be submitted by the applicant. Thank you very much. We'll be moving on to our next case. Calendar 396924, 15 Park Road, Short Hills.
What are we doing? 15 Park Road?
15 Park Road,
Just raise your right hand.
right here.
You already have that.
Do you swear, well, both your hands up, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give tonight to be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Give your name for the-
Mansi, first name M-A-N-S-I, last name A-A-P-A-D-I. Address 15.
Ying Li, Y-I-N-G, last name Li, L-I.
And you're going to be testifying as
Yes.
an architect this evening?
Yes, I'm
Okay.
testifying as the architect for the addition at the 15 Park Road.
Okay, so are you going to say anything this evening as the homeowner?
Only as
Do you want
needed.
me to? Only,
It's
Yeah,
your call.
sure. Yeah, go ahead.
sure.
Okay,
Okay.
so
should we
let's
speak
start with you because it will qualify your architect.
Okay.
So come on all the way up to the microphone.
Hi, we bought the property in July 2021, and we've tried to take time to figure out how we live there, how our lifestyle is. We think that adding on 8 feet to the back of the house, single story, where our kitchen is, the first level, it's a split, so will really enhance our enjoyment of the house. It's a typical split, so that part of the house is a little small and cramped. When we do entertain with 3 or 4 families, it just gets a little small. And we thought about the previous homeowners. Their original plan was to increase or to add on 25 feet at the back of the house. We want to do only 8 feet and a deck because we think that's good enough for us. We don't want to do any more. We really like our backyard. We have all the neighborhood kids playing there, and we want to keep it as it is. So that's where we are.
Okay, thank you. Your credentials, please.
I have a Bachelor of Architecture degree from a university in China, but it's Ann Arbor Credit University. And I have a planning degree from University of Pennsylvania. I've been licensed in New Jersey since 2006. My license is in good standing. I have testified in this board for a number of times. The current home is a split-level, single-family home. And we are basically extending, in a handout in color, you can see the red. The red is the extension of the kitchen, which basically the addition is involves extending the kitchen 8 feet, and the deck is 14 feet. So the only variance we are seeking is the side yard setback. The current building has an existing non-conforming side yard setback of 11.2 feet from the property line on the west. And the placement of the existing home is skewed on the property. So when we extend the building and the deck, it led to a greater deviation to the current side yard setback, resulting at the narrowest part of basically the west corner of the deck at the 10.83 feet side yard setback. Basically, to satisfy the 15 feet side yard setback, we will, the internal, if you look at the first floor plan, if we set back 15 feet from the property line, that will impact the interior circulation of the kitchen. And that also will make it will involve a deeper extension toward the backyard. And another, I guess that's number, yes, but that's the only variance we're seeking. It's the existing non-conforming side yard setback, where the required minimum is 15. Existing non-conforming is 11.2 because the house is placed skewered. So that right now we have 10.83 feet side yard setback. We believe it's a small ask, and that addition is minimum, is 8 foot toward the back of the yard. And another situation with this property is the previous owner had basically they sought this they sought the same side yard setback variance and in the year 2020 with much deeper addition at the 25 or 26 feet, and that application was approved. We understand that we cannot grandfather the previous application also. Now we're in a much smaller scale. But with that in consideration, we think that this is a reasonable scale of addition, and it does not pose negative impact to the neighborhood.
So that side of the house, is any of it conforming currently, or is
That's the only existing non-conforming, and then that's the only variance we are seeking.
right? So the actual home itself is not.
Yes,
conforming,
yes.
Physical.
Correct.
Anything further, or?
Yeah, basically it's a modest addition at the back of the house, and the addition and deck are buffered by existing mature landscape on the west side of the property. So we don't think it poses any negative impact to the neighborhood and to the street.
Our side is also the neighbor's backyard because they face Old Short Hills Road.
That's right.
Okay, any questions from the board for either the homeowner or architect?
Just a quick question. How far would you estimate this extension that you're making to the kitchen from the neighbor's building area?
Okay. Actually, the survey doesn't show, but if I'm looking at the area map on the first page, L100,
The
it looks,
closest building is actually his garage. The house is much further
yes.
towards Old Short Hills
I
Road.
guess Menzies mentioned that the left side neighbor, it's the backyard. Basically, their front is the Old Short Hill Road. So it looks like, I don't see any structure from the area map. Looks like closest one is actually the detached garage.
Yes, they
If
have-
I eyeball, it's at least 30 or 40 feet away. It's not, they're not fronting Park Road, they are fronting Old Shore Hill
So
Road.
that side of your property, basically the driveway comes into the garage for that neighbor.
Yes.
Yes, correct,
Yes, so
yeah.
it's our property line, then his
Mhm.
driveway, and then the garage for his
Gotcha.
driveway, and then on the other side of the garage towards Old Short Hills Road is the house.
Very helpful. Thank you.
I have a quick question. Confirming the deck is first floor deck or second floor deck?
It's a
It's
split.
grade level. It's
Okay.
yeah, it's basically less than 36 inch above ground.
Thank you.
Anything else from the board? Any questions from the audience? Try this out. Any comments from the audience regarding this application? Then I'll close the public portion of this meeting. Board members, any thoughts?
I think it's a very modest ask. It doesn't seem to impact the neighbor in any way. I have no issue with it. It meets the burden of proof.
Yeah, I would agree. You're really not exacerbating the condition, other than, of course, the property line happens to fall away a little bit. Since your neighbor doesn't have any significant living areas near that new deck, I really don't see this as being a problem, so I would support the application.
I would agree with the fellow board members here, and I think it seems to be a modest ask.
Agreed, same.
Thank you.
So I have a motion in this case.
Make a motion to approve this application.
A second.
I can second.
Joseph Caulfield,
Yes.
Sean Harjani,
Yes.
Gary Rosen.
Yes.
Virginia Truitt.
Yes.
Rosella Sorrell,
Yes.
Xiaozhen Peng,
Yes.
Craig Petner.
Yes, good luck with the project.
Thank you.
Next up, we have calendar 3967-24. for 14 Great Hills Terrace.
That's at 5 minutes.
Take it, guys.
So, yeah, 8:45, 20 minutes. That's what I like.
Good evening, how are you?
I'm okay, how are you?
Good. We're gonna swear everyone in that's gonna speak tonight, so
The two of us.
just the two of you. Super.
Please swear or affirm testimony about to give in tonight's hearing be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
Names for the record.
Lynn Debner, DEMBNER.
Cindy Boner, architect, BOERNER.
I'm going to give a little background as to why. I have called 14 Great Hills Terrace home since 1991, and my husband has called it home since 1978. We raised our kids here, and now our kids can bring their children back home, and we would like to make it comfortable for the entire family to enjoy. We previously performed many improvements and renovations throughout the years to make the home work for our family. We added a master suite, second floor addition, pool for the kids to enjoy. We upgraded our kitchen and bathroom in 2001. We finished the basement. We've also made some minor improvements such as adding a generator and updating a master bath in 2018 and installing a new roof. We love our home, our neighborhood, and being in Milburn. We love the fact that our kids can bring their kids back to the home they grew up in and to the town they were raised in. We do not want to move from the area. That being said, we are getting older, our family is growing, and we would like to make some more improvements to make the home work for us once again. Currently, our laundry room, we have a stacked laundry room. We're getting older, bending down, getting into that washing machine pain in the neck. So we'd like to make a laundry room where the washer and dryer are next to each other, raised up a little bit on the main level so we don't have to run up and down the stairs. We have young grandchildren now and extended family that come home, and we would like to open up the kitchen, the dining room, and the family room, having the open space where we can all fit comfortably and we can entertain and gather is important to us. In addition, we'd love a place where we can put the grill closer to our kitchen outside so we don't have to deal with the stairs in the wintertime. We have spoken to our right side neighbors, James and Ying Pei, 10 Great Hills Terrace, and he reviewed our plans and has no concerns and expressed approval. We also spoke to our left side neighbors, Cindy and John Cleary, 16 Great Hills Terrace, and they have also expressed no concerns. In fact, Cindy is here and James and Ying are here tonight. We hired our architect, Cindy, and began working on plans to mainly open up the kitchen, dining, and family room and provide better laundry facilities. We looked at a few different options, but given our existing nonconformances, unfortunately, there didn't seem to be an option that would avoid a variance, which is why we're here tonight. I'd like to pass this off to Cindy, who can discuss the specifics of the variances, unless you have any questions for me first.
I think we're good. Any questions? Hold down. Share your qualifications for the board, please.
Yep, graduated summa cum laude, NJIT 1996 with a Bachelor of Architecture. I'm licensed in the state of New Jersey since 2000. My license is in good standing. I've appeared before various boards throughout Morris, Essex, Union, Sussex, and Hunterdon County. I have been before the Milburn Zoning Board multiple times in the past, though it has been a few years. And I've been deemed an expert witness in the field of architecture.
And you're standing, licensed in good standing, right?
Yes.
Your credentials are accepted by the board.
Okay, I'm just going to start by briefly walking you through the projects. These are the same drawings that you have in front of you. I'm going to start with sheet number 2.
Cindy, is that sheet number 1? I see an orange
Yes.
rectangle. Is that orange rectangle?
It is not.
It is not. So why don't we mark as A1? I saw you trying to get that back.
Yes.
Unsuccessful. Exactly. That's right. We're gonna, why don't you give us the date of these plans as revised?
Variance on January 10th, 24. So it's the same drawings. It's literally the only change is that orange square.
Go ahead.
Okay, sheet 2, first floor plan. So on the first floor, we propose this. It's basically there's a little indent here, which we plan on infilling. Again, as Lynn was saying, to get the laundry room onto the first floor with machines next to each other. and to relocate the powder room so that we can create an open kitchen dining family room space. The other addition is a small bump out on this side here to accommodate a chimney. We're also adding a small deck and patio space off the back, again, as Lynn was mentioning, to be able to get the barbecue closer to the house so they don't have to go up and down stairs to access the barbecue. Sheet 3 is the basement plan. No changes here. The new additions will be on crawl space. The second floor, also no plans of changes on the second floor. We did look at the option of trying to locate the laundry room on the second floor to avoid an addition on the first floor. It wasn't working without either annihilating a bedroom or important closet space. And again, Lynn didn't really want to be dealing with stairs. She spends most of her time on the first floor during the day, so she didn't want to be going up and down stairs to access the laundry room. Sheet 4. So the rear elevation, really the only changes here are we're doing these boxed out windows. One will be like a small sort of sitting area in the family room, adding French doors off the eating area that goes out to that small deck and patio space, and a boxed out window in the kitchen to accommodate Lynn's growing plant collection. On the right side, you can see the infill. So right now that's the existing kitchen. This is the existing garage. We're kind of infilling a little indent there on the side. And on the left side, you can see the small bump out for the chimney, and there's no proposed changes at the front. So you cannot see the additions from the front or from the road. Going back to sheet number 1. Zoning and site plan. So we're going to talk about the variances that we require. We require 2 variances, one for side yard setback and one for accessory rear yard coverage. As you can see by the required side yard setbacks, our home is already existing non-conforming on both sides, 14.5 and 14 feet to the new additions, whereas 15 feet is the required. This is due to our lot width being narrower than the required. Our lot width is 71.3 feet, whereas 100 feet is required. If our lot was the required width, we wouldn't be here tonight. So we have the hardship of an undersized lot in both area, 15,816 square feet versus the 20,000 square feet required, and in width. The other variance that we need is for rear yard accessory coverage. Again, this is an existing nonconformance, and it's mainly due to the pool and patio area, as well as the undersized lot. While they love and enjoy the pool and patio, they'd like to have a small deck and patio space closer to the house. They love to grill even in the winter, and having to shovel snow off the stoop to get down to the yard to grill has become more and more treacherous. Having a small deck where they can keep their grill without dealing with steps will be a huge improvement. The small patio area will give them a gathering space closer to the home without having to trek to the pool area. Again, we have a hardship of an undersized lot, 15,816 square feet versus the 20,000 square foot required that is causing this nonconformance. If we had a conforming lot, we would not be here tonight. While this zoning item is non-conforming, we believe the lot can handle the additional coverage, given our lot coverage is conforming and our building coverage is well below the allowable. In addition, improved grading and stormwater management will only improve water flow and drainage on the property, creating an added benefit to the site and to our neighbors. We believe our additions are keeping with the style and character of the home, and we're also consistent with the neighborhood as a whole. We believe our additions are minimal and do not conflict with the intent of the zoning regulations. Neither addition is visible from the street. Both are one-story in nature, and both are minimal in square footage, 73.4 square feet and 13.6 square feet. We believe our additions are a positive change to the home, including a detention system which will handle the addition runoff, satisfying a C2 variance where benefits outweigh any potential negatives. We also have the hardship of existing nonconformances, which we're not worsening, and the hardship of an undersized, narrow lot, therefore satisfying a C1 variance. For all of these reasons, we hope the board looks favorably upon our application. Thank you.
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the audience regarding this application? Any comments from the audience? Just gonna swear you in.
Do you swear affirm testimony you're about to give tonight, sharing the truth, whole truth, and the truth?
I do.
Name and address for the record, spelling your name.
Cindy Cleary, Cleary, And I'm at 16 Great Hills Terrace. I'm Lynn's neighbor to the left. And my husband and I have no problem. They've been great neighbors. They always take care of property. Everything's always been fantastic. And anything that they do to this property, I'm sure is going to be completely and, perfectly to improve their lives, their kids' lives. We know their kids have lived here since 96, known them since 96. Never had an issue, love their family. They'll be good. Give them this.
Thank you so much. Any other comments from the audience? That close the public portion of this application. Board members' thoughts? Yeah, I think this is well thought out. I like the fact the patio's on grade. I think everything here is, can be, taken care of, and I would support the application. So, in that case, do I have a motion? Motion to approve.
Second.
One second.
Joseph Caulfield,
Yes.
Chandra Harjani.
Yes.
Gary Rosen.
Yes.
Regina Truitt.
Yes.
Priscilla Zarao.
Yes.
Shawjang King.
Yes.
Nick Clegg.
Yes, good luck with the project.
Thank you very much.
Next up, calendar 397024, 15 Greenwood Drive. Dusty, don't mess up the pace.
I actually thought you were gonna take a break.
Just for wins.
No breaks.
It depends on how long you're gonna go, Tim.
I think that you
I only got a little bit of time. 58 years old.
Ah, youngster.
Oh, no. Oh, no. First line, it's so competitive, and the second thing is.
I'm not
You're
not gonna put
incorrect.
that to proof, so I'll just concede.
Yes, I think you should.
I gotta go home after this, because my dog is apparently eating whiteout.
Oh, really?
My wife is, my wife is.
Still white out?
Yeah, I don't know how he did it. He found some whiteout. And she wants to,
I was gonna say, it's gonna disappear.
she already did that.
Wipe himself out.
That's why I've been running that.
That's scary.
And, the dog is the only kid we have left at home. Okay, we're all ready, sorry.
They're gonna testify. Raise your right hand. Do you swear from testimony you're about to give tonight's hearing truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Yes.
Names for the record, please spelling your names.
James Queen, JAMES, QUEEN.
Solmaz, first name SOLMAZ, Feroz, last name FIROZ.
Timothy Klesse, KLESSE.
So who would like to start?
I'll start.
Good.
Hi, everyone. So we live at 15 Greenwood Drive. We've been there for about 8.5 years. I grew up here. We moved back here when my daughter was 6 months old. We love the neighborhood. We love the town. We really want to be able to stay in that house. We are outgrowing it. We have 2 young kids now. So we just are hoping to renovate it in a way that we can stay for, ever, basically. So we hope that you'll approve our application today, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Plesser, please.
I actually worked in her parents' house when she was, 15. Okay, it's 15 Greenwood Drive in Millburn. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm a degreed architect and a licensed architect in New Jersey and New York, and been licensed for 30 years. And my license is in good standing.
Have you appeared before us before?
Yes.
Okay, super. Credentials are accepted.
The site is 15 Greenwood Drive. It's in the R6 zone. It's a undersized lot, 5,650 square feet, where 6,000 is required. It's a good-looking house. It's a colonial revival. Situated on a block that's really contained, that really is 2 to 2.5 story homes. So it's really compatible with the neighborhood. tonight, what we're attempting to do is to renovate the interior, clean it up, redo it, sort of restore it. And really here tonight to seek a variance for building coverage to add a portico, because we're existing over on building coverage. And to add a dormer to the third floor because the front yard setback is 40 feet, and that actually impacts the rear dormer, if this all makes sense. And I'll take you through it a little more. We were hoping that when the ordinance changed related to front yard setback, that it would prevent us from coming. But because we don't have enough houses to create an average, we have to default to 40. Although there's one house to the right that you could count, which is actually closer to the street than we are. Okay, and that document is inside your application. I think it's page 15, but I'll come back to it in just a little bit. I'm going to start with the drawings that you have, which my drawings are exactly the same as yours. And and I'm on my BOA 1 sheet now. What we're attempting to do is to add a portico and to add a dormer up in the third floor.
Where is the portico? Oh, there it is.
The portico is actually at the side door.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a side portico. As part of it, I'm now my BOA 2 sheet. What we're doing is we're renovating the interior of the building. We're renovating the bathrooms up on the second floor. And on the third floor is where we're adding this kind of 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. The third floor is presently occupied space, and it's really James's office is up there now. And then a storage area on the right side. Now, what happens to us because of the zoning is, I guess it's best for me to show on, it would be best to show on the OA3 on the left side elevation, which is this one up in the upper right hand corner. Our front yard setback is about 15 feet. So if I measure from the property line, the 40-foot mark is coming right here in the rear of the building. So this portion of that dormer is actually requiring a variance because of front yard setback. And that only happened to us because we had to default to 40 because we couldn't use the average. But I shouldn't say, I'd say that the adjacent house is about 15 feet, which is about the same as we are. But it's not a legal average for us because the zoning ordinance requires 3 properties to the right in this case. In terms of the 3 properties to the left, or kind of up the balance of Greenwood, we conform easily, and our dormer that's up there is way back off of the average line. And we've done other things to the building, like I've minimized the visual impact of the dormer by pulling it in 2 feet off the sides of the edge so that the builder would appear to be, subordinate to the
Can you see the
building.
dormer from the front yard?
Well, it's a corner lot, so you can see it from this, what I'm gonna say is the side front. I don't have a good picture of it to show you tonight. But that's our new dormer coming in, and you can see how we push the dormer in so that we can show a lot of roof in the foreground of it so that we can minimize the impact of the dormer. This line that's coming up here and then going on the angle is the side yard setback, which is sort of like the rear yard in this property. And you can see that some of our existing building is getting clipped. But what we did is we pushed our dormer enough so that we would miss it on when we added to our building as we came up. I'd just like to show one more. I'd like to enter an exhibit, I guess. So this is my A1.
A1 is a photo board consisting of 5 photos.
Yes. And my first photo this is the Greenwood side elevation. Remember, I'm on a corner lot. So that's our building. Our dormer is in that area. This is the house to the left on the Greenwood as it wraps the corner. This one is the best photo to show it, where you can see the existing roof and you're ready for this. I just blocked in whiteout to give you an idea. It was the only thing I could think of to do it. This is where the dog got the whiteout.
No.
No, it's not. I did the same one. But that's really what we did. You can see, I pushed the dormer in the 2 feet and we pushed the dormer up off of the roof line so that it's minimized. But that's really what that dormer is doing in this case. Then I swing around, and then when I come to this side of the building, the dormer's not visible. The front of the building, where we're actually adding the portico, is back here, because that's our mudroom entrance right there. And then I just wanted you to see that there's a lot of green space to the right of the building itself. And this is the adjacent house, which is actually closer to the property line than we are on the Greenwood side. Greenwood starts here and takes a turn and goes all the way almost to Main Street, right? Because it's a long road. This is really the beginning of it. Do you want me to take you through more?
I'm gonna correct the description of A1 as consisting of 6 photographs.
Sorry, yeah, that's true. That's correct, correct. See, that's the attorney thing going on. I think the site can easily take this. It's a corner lot. The nice thing that a corner lot does is it shows a lot of green space in the foreground. Right? We're really careful to take our addition and sort of minimize its impact on the building by pushing it in off of the picture plane. Right? I pushed it in that dormer, and I pushed it in off the gutter side of the dormer so that we could minimize it. Still get some space up there to make his office a little more livable, but also to minimize its impact, because it is visible from this side of the road. Okay. The additional building coverage request for tonight is 0.2%, and that's like 0.2%, I'm saying. And that is really to allow us to build this overhang so they could kind of open the door and get the kids into the house with a little cover. And we did it on the side because there's a little less impact on the building, which we kind of already thought was a little close to the street as it sits. But it's really kind of small in terms of what we're trying to pull off today. Okay. Is there any questions, or this site still conforms to lot coverage, believe it or not?
So your building coverage is 0.2, but you're actually 5.5 deviation over standard.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I should have said
So you're
it.
you're 0.2 over your existing.
We're 0.2 over existing, but the existing building coverage is
Yeah, you're
28.5 or
you're
28.3%.
over standard.
Yeah.
Anyone have any questions?
You raising the fireplace on that?
Yes, yes. Yeah, it comes up about 2 feet, I think.
And where the porch is now is gonna be the same roof height because you have the windows on the second floor, right?
Yes,
You
yes.
do the porch.
Is that enclosed or not?
The porch, it's enclosed.
Yeah, the office. Any other questions?
So what's causing that 0.2? Sorry, I missed that. The 0.2
It's a portico, because it's additional. We added a portico, so we added new we added new building coverage.
And that's what's the dimensions for that? So
It's 6 by 2. It's 14 square feet.
14 square. Gotcha.
It's between the two buildings, really.
Any questions from the audience for Mr. Plessy, the homeowner? Any comments from the audience? Then we'll close the public portion. Thoughts?
I think it's kind of a modest ask. It's not much different from existing. It'll look better ultimately, and I think it improves the property.
Great use of existing space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's thoughtfully done. Yeah.
So, do you have a motion? Motion approved.
Second.
Joseph Caulfield,
Yes.
Chandra Rajani,
Yes.
Gary Rosen,
Yes.
Regina Truitt,
Yes.
Priscilla Sarat,
Yes.
Zhang Ping,
Yes.
Craig Knight.
Yes, good luck with the project.
Thank you.
Your dog.
Yeah, I gotta go see the film.
Very
Folks, we're gonna take-
suspicious
we're
with
gonna take a
that
5-minute
photo.
break, and then we're gonna hear our last case, so you can come on down and get set up.
No wonder she's calling.
Done my hair. My name is Michael Bonner. I'm an attorney with the Freire Law Group in Cranford, New Jersey. Last name Bonner. We have a very simple question. I think it's a simple question. It's an appeal of the zoning officer's determination where she added a detached garage to the floor area ratio calculation. And I think anything of that sort should be determined by the Millbury zoning ordinance. And I have a professional planner with me tonight. I'll put him on shortly, but Essentially what you have here is your ordinance doesn't specifically include garages in the description of floor area ratio residential, which is your section 301.22. And it creates this dichotomy because it clearly excludes other uninhabitable areas. In fact, if you go to the R7 description of the bulk standards for the zone, it describes a detached garage as an accessory use, and that would also lend to an interpretation that it's not part of the principal building and therefore shouldn't be included in the floor area ratio. Having said that, there are numerous cases in the state of New Jersey that deal with topics like this topic and similar topics. I cited to some of them in the application submission without going into the citations. Effectively, New Jersey law in this area talks about restrictions and zoning ordinances must be clearly expressed and doubts are resolved in favor of the property owner. Further, a zoning restriction should not be interpreted to proscribe a given use of a private property unless it does so with reasonable clarity. Further, zoning regulations are restrictive of property rights and ought not to be too broadly interpreted against the possessor thereof. There are others that I cited too, but I think that gives you a flavor for where New Jersey law is on something like this, where your definition doesn't specifically state that detached garages are included and implicit in the language of that and the fact that it describes a garage as a, excuse me, as an accessory use. I think we can exclude it. I think it should be excluded. And if you look at the variance for floor area ratio, we only exceed the floor area ratio by the square footage of the garage. Otherwise, we'd be in compliance. Having said that, unless you have any questions for me.
So, without giving you a sophomore answer, because that's how we do it.
Can I say something before you even
Yeah,
start?
go ahead, yeah.
So I just want to remind the board, because it's not typical that this board hears what is being submitted as what's called the 70A appeal. And what a 70A appeal is, it's under section 40:55D-70A of the municipal land use law. And it provides that under circumstances where the appellant, which is the applicant here, they allege that there's an error in a determination, in essence, made by an administrative official in the interpretation of a zoning ordinance. So you have a certain period of time, you think that you don't need relief from something, and you go in, you get confirmation one way or another from the zoning officer, and the zoning officer doesn't see it your way. Just an example. You have a certain period of time to file an appeal. You can file an appeal with this board of adjustment. It's a majority vote, and basically the applicant has the burden of proof to determine that based on whatever evidence they want to submit, that the zoning officer in essence got it wrong in terms of her, in this case, interpretation of the zoning ordinance. So I just wanted to sort of set the table for that. So go ahead.
No, so it is our interpretation that the way we've always done it here in Monroe Township, that detached garages are 100% part of the floor area ratio as it's not stated otherwise. I don't know if you care to elaborate on that, but.
I thought you were addressing that to me, but go ahead.
Yeah, yes, but go ahead.
I would say then it would be incumbent upon maybe the planning board to look at how these things are defined and change your definitions to make it clearer so that applicants clearly understand that garages are included. It would be very easy to amend your definition of floor area ratio residential to say, including detached garages that are uninhabitable. You create a dichotomy between where you talk about attached garages, you provide an explanation of what the space above it that's included. You talk about uninhabited attics, and your definition of garage indicates that it's a structure. I don't think I have it. A garage is a structure used to store vehicles, other items associated with residential structures. A garage shall not include kitchen, sleeping, or private bath facilities, clearly uninhabitable space. And again, I point you to the R7 bulk standards that say a garage is an accessory use as opposed to a principal use. I don't think that's clear enough for an applicant to understand, even if it's the way you always do it.
I'm certainly not the most senior member here, as I've only been on this board for about 10 years. But I will tell you that this is the first time it's ever been questioned or even attempted to not include. And I, like I said, I have no reason to not include it in FAR.
Can I-
So,
I'm sorry.
sure.
Can I ask you where you, just give me the section that you're talking about, R7, where the garage and accessory,
It is
606?
606.3. I believe it's,
Accessory uses is section C.
no, I think it's D or E. I apologize. The information we got from the zoning officer cited the violations as being 606.2, which is not our zone. 606.3 is our zone. Right. All of 606.3 is the R7 zone. If you scroll down, I think it's either D, paragraph D or E towards the bottom, describing accessory uses. Above that are the principal uses.
Yeah, I don't see any reference, I'm looking at it right now, I don't see any reference to garages. Does that make sense to you?
Under accessory, the paragraph describing accessory uses.
Yeah.
Hang on.
Sorry.
I didn't write down the section because it's one of the
That where it goes back to
sections of
602C?
R7, describing
All right,
R7.
accessory uses,
606.3E3.
It refers back to R3, R4, 5, and 6 for accessory uses garage. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, just sticking with what you submitted, I think that, I assume that that's your submission, right?
Yes.
I mean, it seems that the section 30122 reads the area on the first and second floors of the building computed by using the outside dimensions of the exterior walls of the building.
The building is the home. The garage is a detached garage that is not part of the principal use.
Okay, I just wasn't sure. I don't think I saw any plan.
No, I know, and that's what I'm trying to get across here is that your ordinance isn't clear. It talks about the building. The building is ordinarily associated with a principal use. An accessory use is something different. Floor area ratio, I've never seen a garage, and I've been doing this for a long time, even longer than Mr. Simon. Never seen a garage included in floor area ratio calculation in any municipality, whether it's attached or detached. It's not habitable space.
So, I mean, you've seen places where it's attached to, the first floor of the building, and it's not included in their floor area ratio, or?
No, it's
do they-
included in coverage, but
Yeah.
not
It's
FAR.
difficult to say, to compare that, because whatever their definition.
Even your ordinance describes the space above an attached garage as being included, but doesn't specifically state that the garage is included.
But
What I'm trying to get across is that it's confusing and it's hard for an applicant to make a reasoned decision. This all came up because it's an architect. The architect on the project is someone that I work with on a regular basis. And she said, I don't understand why they're including a garage. And we talked about it. We looked at the definitions, consulted a planner, and the applicant wanted to challenge the determination so that he didn't have to either tear down the garage or get another variance, because everything else on the site complies. The original plans we submitted had a coverage variance, but the plans are being revised. They have been revised, and they've eliminated that variance. So eliminating this variance, you have a fully compliant piece of property with one pre-existing non-conforming bulk standard, and that's a front yard setback of just a few inches.
But your floor area ratio only complies if you calculate it the way you're calculating it, which is not including the garage. Otherwise, you're gonna be over.
Right, that's,
the
no,
way the township
no,
calculates it.
that's what I said. The applicant wanted to do this so he didn't have to tear down the garage.
We can't tear down the garage. That's not an option. You have to have a garage
Okay.
for the ordinance. So tearing it down.
But it's
is going
not
back to the
habitable
house.
space. Under,
Right, a garage
Okay.
has to be, it is part of the ordinance. You cannot not have a garage.
Okay.
So it would, that would fail,
Right. But so to your way of thinking, even though it's a detached garage, uninhabitable, it's included in floor area ratio, even though it's a separate use from the principal use, the building has it's applied in all of your definitions. The building is the permitted use, which is the single-family residence, and a detached garage is an accessory use. Are all accessory uses included in floor area ratio?
Just had the pool house, that's
Right.
correct, that was included in the area ratio as well. It's contributing to the mess on the, on the lot, it's contributing to the mess. That's why you-
Okay.
I have a
Do
question.
you even want to hear from our
Yeah.
planner? Or
I just have a question.
has everybody decided already?
Thank you. I can appreciate yours if you want some clarification. That makes sense to me. But the further down in this ordinance 301.22, it does talk about defining habitable areas. Now you defined it as having, I think you were talking about a bathroom or some other way, but it looks like habitable areas are defined by having a ceiling height of greater than 6 feet 6 inches. So perhaps that is why this is considered part of floor area ratio, based on this.
Right, but there are numerous instances within your ordinance where you talk about uninhabitable areas, and they are not included.
Right, but
And that-
the
and-
definition
and-
for habitable versus uninhabitable.
Right, but if you look at your definition of a garage, it would,
Doesn't use the word habitable or inhabitable.
no, it doesn't.
Yes.
But it describes items that, if they were included in a garage, would make it habitable space by implication.
I'm not disputing that.
It describes the garage as a place to store a car.
I think that it
That's
hinges
not
on
habitable
habitable
space.
definition of
Hold on,
habitable.
hold on. I think, and this is all helpful and productive, but I think at this point, with all due respect, the way we should proceed is that you should present your case, right? Then the board will ask questions, public will ask questions. Ms. Davitt, I suggest be sworn in and weigh in, right? And then we'll go from there. So let's kind of keep it sort of.
I'm done, except for our planner.
Well, no, they have the right to make their case.
No, I'm saying we have,
What's that?
I don't know what we're asking for this evening, no.
Well, no, the only thing that is on the table tonight is a request for an appeal as to whether an FAR variance is required as part of
To grant or deny the
an
appeal.
application. We are not hearing, if the board determines that there's an FAR variance, we're not hearing any proofs in support of that
Right.
FAR variance.
No, we're revising our application to include that variance.
Right.
Very well.
It's the interpretation of what's.
It's just basically an appeal of a determination by the zoning officer saying that they need an FAR variance. They say, no, we don't, and we're gonna hear why, and then you're gonna make the call.
I'd like to introduce our planner.
Yes, we swear.
Give them your qualifications.
Sure, good evening.
Do you swear from testimony about to give in this hearing tonight to be the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Your name, spelling your name, please.
First name TJ, last name RICCI, business address 92 Park Ave, Rutherford, New Jersey.
Please, would you say?
Qualifications, licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey, nationally certified by the American Institute of Certified Planners, bachelor's degree from Rutgers University, master's degree in city and regional planning, also from Rutgers University. Testified in front of well over 75 different boards throughout the state of New Jersey. I've been involved in variance justification testimony as well as testimony in support of appeals like we have here tonight.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Right, so you've heard Mr. Bonner give a brief introduction on why we're here tonight, just seeking appeal with regards to the FAR denial. So this is a property in the R7 residential zoning district. It was alleged that the property exceeds the increase in FAR, specifically for inclusion of the garage in that total floor area. So the applicant had given me a call, asked me to review and interpret and read definitions, prepare my thoughts and opinions, and that's why essentially we're here tonight. So the first thing that I do is I go right to the zoning ordinance definition section, and I read if there's a floor area ratio definition. And there is, specifically for floor area ratio residential. And the measurement is you include the first and second floors of the building, which is what the applicant did, and then
there's a provision, it says not including basements and uninhabitable attics. Now, it doesn't mention garages, but it's leaning towards don't include uninhabitable spaces. And then further in that definition, it does talk about garages, but as Mr. Bonner mentioned, it makes that distinction. It says habitable spaces above garages should be included. The fact that they made that piece where it separates itself from the ground level of the garage makes me think that if this is included, habitable above the garage, therefore the ground level of the garage shall be excluded. That's the way that I interpreted the reading of that definition. Furthermore, it talks about garage. Garage is defined.
By the way, TJ, if you're going to refer to provisions in the ordinance, it would be certainly helpful to me if you refer to them as section numbers.
Right.
Okay, so I think that what you read so far is a definition of floor area ratio residential that is in section what, 301 or
301.22.
301.22, which is in the definition section, correct?
Correct.
Okay, go ahead.
And then per section 301.23 of the zoning ordinance, garage is defined as a structure used to store vehicles and other items associated with residential structures. And then the next sentence says a garage shall not include kitchen, sleeping, or private bath facilities. Now, we've already concluded based on at least my opinion of the floor area ratio definition, that uninhabitable areas are not included in that FAR calculation. And if a garage is not to include kitchen, sleeping, or private bath facilities, which this unfinished garage does not, it's just a further indication that this is exempt from the FAR calculation. Now, that being said, because the definition has some vagueness in it, we as planners, we like to consult other planning books or planning literature when we seek additional clarification on definitions. So as the board or Mr. Simon may be aware, we refer to the Complete Illustrated Book of Development Definitions by Harvey Moskowitz. We call it the Moskowitz book. They talk about floor area ratio, pretty standard definition, ratio of all floor area of buildings to the lot area. They have additional commentary, and it says that that floor space in that calculation is to be used for dwelling purposes. Once again, another just kind of indication, FAR typically includes areas that are habitable, garages unfinished. It did have, I know we were looking on what's defined as a habitable space or not. It does have a definition on habitable room. It says any room in a dwelling unit other than a kitchen, bathroom, closet, pantry, hallway, cellar, storage place, garage, or unfinished basement. So once again, I'm thinking habitable, not garage. Yes, I mean, based on my interpretation as a zoning ordinance, based on my consultation with additional planning and development definitions, commonly accepted industry standard books, I really think that habitable is the key here. I think that that is the provision that you use to include in your FAR calculation. I'll provide a little bit extra testimony. In my experience, I've done a lot of these applications before, single family residential, duplexes, multifamily. Garages are very, very, very rarely, if at all, included in the floor area ratio calculations. Very atypical, actually, to include it. So it's my opinion that this wouldn't require an FAR variance. I did actually look at surrounding areas of what they define as FAR. Maplewood does not include garages in FAR. Summit does not include garages in FAR. Union, accessory buildings are included, but not space used for off-street parking, AKA a garage. That's my opinion as a professional planner and reviewing the application as well as the town's definitions and my own definitions, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Quick question on your interpretation of this floor area ratio residential definition.
Yeah.
The very first part of it says area on the first and second floor of a building. A building could include a standalone garage, wouldn't it be, if it's on the property, if it's on the lot?
It could. It comes down to what's then the definition of a building. I mean, the way that I interpreted that was it's referring to the primary building or the principal structure of the property instead of like accessory structures like a garage. So I guess the answer is the way I interpreted that is the first and second floor of a home, because you wouldn't really have a second floor of say a garage, you know.
Sure, but it does, I mean, go on to say that computed by using the outside dimensions of the exterior wall of the building. So it doesn't say just the residential building where there is habitable space. If there is another building, I mean, it doesn't clearly lay out in terms of that, and that should be excluded if it's a standalone garage. Just asking, your interpretation. So essentially 2 buildings standalone, one habitable, one garage, which is inhabitable. Should that be added in the floor area ratio? That's the question I would have from your interpretation perspective.
Well, to further that, a pool house is not habitable space. Can't live in it. So at what point does your definition end? I mean, there is a certain vagueness to it. The township has always interpreted a garage as floor area ratio, okay? But the way you're saying it, it picks and chooses what an exterior building would be in floor area ratio. So if you have a pool house in the backyard, that would be either, because I mean, if I put a chair in the garage and I called it a pool house, is that now habitable space?
Well, wait, Mr. Bond, he's the witness, let him please answer the questions that are asked of him. Thank you.
I think there's a lot of speculation around what would be considered habitable or not if a chair was in a pool house. It would depend on if you have utilities going there, if it's cooking.
Garage, it's just a garage. If I pack it full of stuff.
Or a refrigerator.
I mean,
Spare refrigerator.
Yeah, I mean,
it's still a garage. This is still unfinished. I mean, whether he has a car or uses a bicycle to get to work or whatever the means of transportation you would be using this garage for, or a refrigerator, I still think the testimony is it's unfinished. There's no cooking.
The floor area ratio is to look at the entire property and say, how much development can this property take? So if I had a 2-car garage on this property and it was an extra 20 by 20, that's 400 square feet, that you would just exclude from the development and add another 400 square feet to the house in an R7 lot. You're now going to have a floor area ratio of a house with a massing that's going to be excessive relative to the lot. I think that's the essence of this, is that it looks at the property in its entirety and says, anything that's there, whether it's the garage or otherwise, is considered part of this floor area ratio because of the fact that a garage has to exist. You could not duplicate this house today, or your client could not tear the garage down and say, great, now I'll just absorb it into the house.
Well, I think that's why there's multiple requirements for these lots. That's when lot coverage would kick in. That's when building coverage would kick in. Those are other means to regulate intensity of a property.
Very seldom do you have floor area ratio, not building coverage as a, is it also in many cases.
Right.
So, I mean, they sort of run one and the same.
I mean, it does offer that second line of defense, like I'm saying. I've read a lot of codes where FAR is excluded, where you get the exclusion up until a certain square footage of your garage, so you don't do what you're saying you could potentially, quote unquote, get away with. So people don't do that.
Can I build a 6-car garage in the township of Millburn?
Off the top of my head, I can't say yes or no.
Okay, let's say hypothetically the answer is yes. Right? There's nothing to prohibit that. So that 6-car garage building, based on your opinion, would not be calculated as part of FAR.
I mean, it would depend on the use of that. I think that the fact that this is an
Well, it's a
accessory
garage.
structure,
Establish that, it's a garage.
is it a primary use or is it is it a standalone, is this a parking garage?
According to your definition, you're saying that it's a accessory use.
I'm saying it's an accessory use, incidental to a single family
Okay,
residence.
so wait, let's break this down. So is it your professional opinion that accessory buildings and accessory structures are not to be included in the calculation of FAR?
Correct. Well,
Okay, wait, hold on. Is that correct? Yes?
that is correct.
Okay. So where in the ordinance do you find support for that conclusion?
I mean, I go back to the testimony that I previously presented with regards to the exclusion of uninhabitable space of the garage not being included, specifically with the floor area ratio residential definition in section 301.22.
Okay. So in 301.22, does it distinguish between principal buildings and structures and accessory buildings and structures?
It does not.
Okay.
So can I ask you, as a professional planner, when you are trying to understand what a municipal zoning ordinance requires, you say you have looked at the language of the ordinance, which obviously seems like the starting point. You've looked at what other towns do and how they interpret that, what is included in FAR and what is not. Is it appropriate for you as a professional planner to consider what the township itself, how that township has interpreted its own regulations and in terms of figuring out whether there's any ambiguity? And if you found any ambiguity in how Milburn Township has interpreted its ordinance?
I think that's more of a legal question. And
I'm asking him as a planner what he looks at. Does he think it's appropriate?
It's a fair question.
To
You
look at
can comment on Mike, but he can answer that question.
Is it appropriate to look at what the township that you're actually looking at, how they've handled those questions historically?
Yes, it is.
And that's backed up by the case law that I cited to, allergy season.
Sorry.
Um,
And by the way, just so we're clear, and actually, I just spoke about this at a state seminar 2 weeks ago, which is that a consideration by any board in interpreting an ordinance includes how the board has historically interpreted a particular provision. It's a relevant factor established by case law.
Regardless of how it's interpreted in
Neighboring. Look, the applicant can present whatever they want to present.
Right.
Right? That's up to the board to make a decision. I'm just saying that as a matter of law, a relevant consideration is how a board has historically interpreted a particular provision. It's a factor for sure. That's it.
John, to take your interpretation and apply it to our township, we would have chaos. I mean, it would just, I realize you don't like the vagueness of it, and maybe that is something that the township committee needs to address. But to do it your way would be total chaos. Especially dealing with R6 and R7 lots. These are very small lots that per ordinance require a garage. So the garage isn't arbitrary. So if we were to start getting rid of all of the garages in town and saying, okay, that doesn't count towards FAR, just everyone gives, what's the allowance? Is it 200 square feet? Is it 400 square feet? I mean, what is it? If you have a 2-car garage, do you get a benefit that I only have a 1-car garage?
I'm not sure, and maybe this is more of a legal question, I'm not sure that using my interpretation would cause chaos to the town. I'm not sure that's on the burden of the applicant to prove.
And I was able to, I had a 3-car garage.
Mhm.
You know, and believe it or not, there are some around here that were anomalies that were built back in the days with larger garages and things like that. And I was able to add 400 or say 600 square feet to my house in the R6 or R7, okay? Yeah, and then you maxed out the FAR, you would effectively double, maybe more of the size of the house per the ordinance.
Yeah, I think once again, that's where building coverage comes in. That's where lot coverage comes in. That's where building setbacks come in. Theoretically, you can't do anything you want. I mean, I know we're saying that, but you can't. There's a lot of other regulations that will get triggered that guide how intense and how big a structure can be on a lot.
Can municipalities use FAR to control those?
It's one of the controls, yeah.
So that maybe Milburn does that, actually, Milburn does do that.
And
Actually,
also,
just before you go, do you know the history of Milburn, Short Hills?
With regards
When
to
I say
what?
that, I'll give you a little history. It was about the later half of the 19th century, Stuart Hartshorne put together a rolling hill.
Mhm.
Everybody had carriage houses back then. They still exist. There's 4 in my neighborhood. They have second floors where people have dens, family rooms, man caves. Some have electric, actually, pretty much all of them have electricity. So when you said before that you can't envision a second floor garage, they exist, and they've existed in this town for over 100 years. So the town has acknowledged that, and that is what appears in this definition.
So that's also not permitted anymore.
And
it's not, yeah.
Right. And I think that plays into the floor area ratio residential definition because it says areas above garages are to be included, AKA the carriage house, if there's a unit up there. If the whole garage was included, maybe they would have said garages or carriage houses on the ground floor in addition to
the first
floors
sentence
above.
says the area of the first and second floors of a building.
Of a building, once again, I politely interpreted that as singular building, the principal primary structure.
But it doesn't say principal primary structure.
It doesn't.
but your ordinance also differentiates garages in this zone as accessory uses as opposed to, so when you're talking about a definition in the singular that talks about a building, it's talking about the principal building on the property as opposed to an accessory building. All of this, the only point we're trying to make here is that it's ambiguous from an applicant standpoint. And I think if you look at the case law, we're not going to challenge this in court. I'm telling you that. Okay, I'm giving away whatever leverage I have. But if it were, I think we would win because of the ambiguousness of your definitions and the fact that an applicant can't determine whether a garage is included in FAR because nowhere in your ordinance does it state that. You're pointing to stuff that, and asking us to kind of prove a negative. I would ask you to point to me in your ordinance anywhere, whatever section says it, whoever can do it, where it says garages are included in FAR. You can't because it doesn't state that anywhere. That garages are included. And I think that works against you in this instance. It's not something that necessarily has to be applied broadly and create chaos throughout your municipality. But in this instance, the architect couldn't determine it. TJ and I are both of the opinion that it's not clear enough for an applicant to determine whether a garage is included in FAR. That's all we're trying to say here today. I'm done.
Okay, so why don't we, at
Unless
this
you have more
point, unless
questions.
if there's any other, are there any questions for the planner at this point? So why don't we swear in Ms. Davitt?
Swear affirm testimony about to give tonight to the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes.
So, I'll ask you, Ms. Davitt, so you've been present for the testimony of Mr. Ricky and the legal argument of Mr. Bonner in support of the 70A appeal, which is currently before the board. Can you please provide the board and the public with the benefit of the background of this and your interpretation and the reasoning behind it?
based on previous definitions, we initially, I think this was from I started in 2006 here, so I think this was in 2005. Previous definition of, it was termed gross floor area, but it was expressed as a percentage. And it was the area on the first and second floors of a building computed by using the inside dimensions of the exterior walls, not including basements, detached garages, and uninhabitable attics.
And that,
So
so the
that's
the definition
specifically excluded that.
excluded,
When they
detached
rewrote the
garages.
definitions to make it floor area ratio
which
residential.
was approximately when?
I think this was in. I have it written here. I'm gonna say, had to be at least whenever the FAR came into, maybe 2008, 2010 maybe.
Okay.
And it continued, the area on the first and second floors of a building computed by using the outside dimensions, not including basements and uninhabitable attics. They took the exclusion of detached garages out of the definition. So it was interpreted at that point that, okay, now detached garages are going to be included. And I know we've had many potential ordinances, we've had the planning board discuss it, and they've just been reluctant to not include detached garages up until this point. We've had ordinances that have been proposed to give it.
In other words, they were reluctant to exclude.
Correct. They were reluctant, and I know we've had ordinances which have been proposed, which have gone for first reading and then fallen flat, where we were gonna potentially give applicants 300 square feet to kind of play with, but nothing has ever happened with it. So we continue to include detached garages in the calculation.
So there's the historical use.
Well, it's not just a historical interpretation, it's also the zoning officer providing testimony as to the history of the ordinance provision that impacts the interpretation that was made. Go ahead.
You said you've been here for about 10 years,
I've been here for 17 years.
17 years. So you were here in 2008
Yes.
when the definition was changed? And you helped to write that?
I did not write it, no, it's not.
You had input into it? Or
Not at the time.
not at the time? Were any changes made to the coverage definition at the time? And what, in your opinion, what is the benefit of, well, not the benefit, what is the difference between using coverage and FAR in order to keep a
Well,
property from being too crowded?
let's break down the question. So your first question was there any changes to the block
No,
coverage?
I withdrew that. I stopped. I
Okay.
said, no.
I
I
didn't,
said,
I wasn't
never
clear
mind.
to me, so go ahead.
Because I wasn't sure where I was going.
Yeah,
with
that's
that. Never ask a question,
right.
you know how it works.
So
So your question was,
rephrase
So
your
my
question.
question is, you have a coverage standard and you have an FAR standard. Both of them are ostensibly or actually used to keep properties from becoming too crowded.
yes.
So well, I would say FAR for massing
Mhm.
versus coverage for, keeping the property open. Our application has been revised to eliminate a lot coverage variance. To me, it seems more important that a detached garage would be included in a coverage calculation as keeping the property open versus FAR. Okay, if we were adding a third story or a fourth story, and we're trying to put 5,000 square feet on this 5,000 square foot lot, then I would see including a garage or not including a garage as a relevant inclusion versus coverage. I mean,
So
can
what's
you
the
tell me?
question? What's the
I'm
question?
getting there. I'm trying to get more information. So how do you interpret coverage versus FAR, and do you always include the garage in FAR?
The only time we don't include a garage is if it's a basement garage and it's under the house. Historically, always included detached garages.
Including
since they-
detached garage.
Always.
I think this rests on the legal arguments of ambiguity. I don't think the planner or I can add anything more to the arguments you've made. I don't think an applicant can accurately determine whether a garage is included in your FAR. As I asked the question, I'll ask it again to every member of the board and Ms. Davitt to point to something in the ordinance that says garages are included in FAR. I don't think an applicant can tell whether they're included or not.
Yeah, we're to say it's
It doesn't say
not, right,
it's
so,
right.
And like I said, that's been our practice, and I, you know, it's always been our practice to include them.
I'm not arguing with that.
And I said, if the town, if the TC wants to adopt a new ordinance that's more clear, which I'm not saying that I haven't tried to do, unfortunately, they have not done
And
such.
most of the time, architects do come prior to designing. If they're not used to dealing with this township, they'll come in, they'll meet with us to determine, here's what I'm looking to do, is this doable, what do I need to include, do this, do that. So usually it's-
I would just reiterate, the several cases that I cited, they're in the document that we submitted that say ambiguities should be determined against the board and the township. The state of New Jersey's law.
Well, first of all, so this, from a legal perspective, a couple of things. What has been talked about, which I think is appropriate, is number one, what the history of the ordinance was, okay, which is factual, which certainly I would state should be taken into consideration by the board. I think the history of how this board has interpreted the ordinance should be taken into consideration by the board. I think additionally, you have an ordinance that for purposes of FAR does not distinguish, that's why I asked the question, between principal and accessory buildings and structures for purposes of calculating FAR. And in fact, if you look at the municipal land use law, which the ordinance states should be consulted, in other words, and Mr. Ricky, I think it was appropriate to mention the Harvey Moskowitz book. And I think it's certainly fair for the board to consider in terms of how an outside treatise that is respected interprets various terms. And that happens when there is pure ambiguity in the interpretation of and it usually comes down to what was intended by a particular use, if the use is intended in that particular zone. But I think more important than the Moskowitz FAR definition is a definition of FAR or floor area ratio in the municipal land use law, which the township ordinance specifically refers to. And it states floor area ratio means the sum of the area of all floors of buildings or structures compared to the total area of land that is the subject of an application for development, including non-contiguous land if authorized by municipal ordinance or by a planned development. The point being is that even in the municipal land use law, floor area ratio does not distinguish between principal and accessory buildings or structures, and in fact states that floor area ratio is the sum of the area of all floors of buildings or structures. It doesn't talk about principal buildings, certainly. And similarly, the definition that the floor area ratio residential that has been relied on by the applicant, states, the area on the first and second floors of a building. And there's no mention there of principal or accessory. And building, by the way, is defined, I think, in the municipal land use law of a combination of materials to form a construction adapted to permanent, temporary, or continuous occupancy and having a roof, right? So you can have temporary occupancy. Further, in the ordinance definition of garage garage, it refers to not just to house cars, but also for other purposes as well. And then it has that exclusion, you can't have a bath or a kitchen or what have you. But that doesn't mean you can't have other things, potentially. So those are issues to be considered by the board, but I do think that the applicant, made some fair points in terms of their professional planning witness, and that's up to the board to interpret it accordingly.
Anything further, Joe?
No.
No? Close the public portion. So this is sort of an up or down vote, so I guess to make it easy, we can frame it in the positive. In terms of, do you support the request to have, actually,
Yeah, can I make a suggestion?
yeah, go ahead.
My suggestion is that unless there's any other discussion amongst the board members, that the motion should be whether to support Ms. Davitt's interpretation of the ordinance requiring a floor area ratio variance for this application, including the detached garage. That's how I read it.
I just have a quick question before we get into discussion. You were defining building as per the municipal land use, and I lost you there. Does that talk about habitable or inhabitable?
It doesn't.
So the only definition we have of habitable in our code is anything that's 6 foot.
Right.
And also, for definitions, we define an accessory use, accessory building, but we also define garage.
You do.
So obviously, they identify them as being a separate situation. Not all garages are accessories, under definition.
Any other comments? Then I would. Do I have a motion?
Move to support Ms. Davitt's interpretation.
And a second. Regina?
Joseph Caulfield,
Yes.
Chandra Harjani.
Yes.
Gary Rosen.
Yes.
Regina Truitt.
Yes.
Priscilla Sarat. Yes. Jiajing Peng.
Yes.
Ed Heitner.
Yes. With that, are there any other things anyone's mind they'd like to discuss that's not on the agenda this evening? In that case, I will ask for a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn in a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Have a good evening.
Very pleased.